Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names, kicking candy ass, live in a living color here with you only on Grande's Graveyard. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the show. Last week, I got hit with a bad fucking rhinovirus. I was feeling like hell. I had a fever of 101 degrees last Thursday night when the show would have been going on. So I was MIA. I was out of commission. I wasn't doing shit but sleeping. And I was actually watching the Mets, which unbelievably, they are going to a National League Championship Series. So really cool. I'm very happy for the Mets. It's a dream come true for them. It really is. But I missed the show. I was really honestly like, it was like, man, it just feels weird not doing the show. So I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm going to be talking all things Tales from the Darkside, season number 3, which honestly, I mean, I went into this and I've seen every episode of Tales from the Darkside before. So I honestly my consensus was the third season was the weakest. I don't know if I feel that way anymore. I really don't. We'll talk about it tonight. We'll talk about some of the good, the bad, the goddamn ugly, because there's plenty of it in this season. Of course, 22 episodes of horror entertainment television. I'm very excited to get to that. We also, funny enough, got a package in the mail today, and I figure, you know what? Since we had a week off, we'll unbox it live only on the graveyard here, right here on Grande's Graveyard. So I'm very excited to have you all in the house. Miss C was here before we went live. Ciao, Grande and Graveyardian friends. Miss C, hope all is well with you, my friend. It's good to have you back again, Grande. I miss not seeing your show on Thursday. It's a big part of my Thursday routine. I appreciate that, and that humbles me. I appreciate it. Funny enough, though, I was on a stream last week, even though it was pre-recorded, so that's how it happened. But basically, if you're a fan of Rainbow Fright's channel, DeRay, she was kind enough back in September to have me, Fever Dreamland Theater, and Dice Rollin'. We all came on and recorded our top 5 most disturbing movies, and we went in like roundtable style. And that was pre-recorded, and she aired it last Friday. So if you haven't seen that show, go head over to Rainbow Fright's channel. You can subscribe to her. Really, really great people. She just did a trivia show that I won. I actually won her trivia show this past week. I think it was Monday or Tuesday night. I forget. But I rocked that one. I played really, really good. And she's good people. That was a good stream. So if you missed your daily dose of Grande last week, you can check over to that channel and watch. What we're going to do with the schedule, I'm not 100% sure yet. Now, everything, I guess, for now, is pushed back a week. So we're going to do the Monster Mash special next week, where, of course, like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, we're going to pick one monster movie, throw them on a wheel, spin the wheel, and we'll go through each one of them. So one from each decade. So we get a little bit of, representation from each one of those decades when it comes to monster movies and what they had to offer. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to that show. Of course, we are going to stick with, I think we're going to do, maybe we'll do the round table on a weekend, and we'll stick with the Salem's Lot show during the week, and then we'll still do the Halloween party on October 31st, which is going to be a Thursday night only on Grande's Graveyard. So I'm very excited for that. That's what's going on with the schedule. That's my plan, at least. If there's any of them that's up in the air, it would be the round table. But I think we already got 2 guests locked in, so I think we're going to be fine. We'll be able to find somebody else. We got good brother Tom in the house. Hi, Miss C. Hi, John. Welcome. Good brother Tom, hope all is well with you. I got to do this. I'm sorry. Jinja Ninja. Yes, Jinja Ninja. Checking in. Jinja Ninja movie reviews, my friend. Good to see you as always. I hope all is well with you in the land down under. How are you doing, buddy? By the way, I'm up to my 2004 memoirs. Anthony Cho about those pop cultures and opening. What's going on, good buddy? Hope all is well with you. Always good to hear from Anthony. He actually was checking on me when I was sick, which was very nice of him. So thank you for checking in, Anthony. That's very nice. Anthony's saying, yo. Mateo, if it lets me click on Mateo's comment, it wouldn't let me click on you, Mateo. Ciao, Grande. Welcome back, buddy. The Mets are doing as good as you predicted at the beginning of the year. Yes, yeah. No, I remember me and Mateo talked. It must have been in March, and he was like, yeah, the Blue Jays have a good chance this year. The Mets, he was like, I hope it's not too bad. Well, it is not too bad, buddy. We got 4 wins away from a World Series, so you never know. You truly never know. I'll have to try to remember that. Yeah, no, I'll figure it out. We'll totally figure it out. I don't have the Darkside box set, so these reviews put me onto the good episodes. Oh, cool. Okay, that's awesome. I do highly recommend now, granted, while the DVD transfers of these are not the greatest in the world, and they could really, really use some cleaning up or an upgrade. And some of them, they've taken the original music out, which is devastating if you're, a true Darkside fan like I am, but it is cool to own. I will say I hate this this big box. I know there's season editions where they're just individual cases. I wish I had that. Like, and anybody ever wants to trade, I will fucking full out trade, and I would even throw a kicker in there because, man, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of that, the way that's back packaged. But I guess you get what you pay for. But before we kick off the show tonight, I say, why the hell not? We got some T-shirts to unpackage here, only on the Graveyard. So we had a horror movie mail day today, and I think I know what these are because I pre-ordered them quite a while ago. Oh boy! All right. So just in time for spooky season, I always like to up my Rocktober gear. And this is a design that I just couldn't pass on. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm sort of kind of falling in love with the tie-dye designs. This is, of course, from one of my favorite horror movies of the early 2000s. Probably, in my opinion, like when it comes to like feminism, when it comes to female horror movies that really have something to say about the female, this is one of my all-time favorites from the year 2000. Ginger Snaps. Yes, Ginger Snaps. We got this awesome tie-dye, almost like the Cincinnati Bengals type of shirt here. Nothing on the back, but I kind of really like this design. I'm such a big fan of that movie. I really, one of these days, would love to do a Ginger Snaps retrospective, even though that would mean watching the sequel and the prequel respectively. The first movie would be worth the watch just in and of itself. And I don't know, I just think this is a perfect Rocktober shirt. You have the pumpkin, you have the orange and black design, which is like a pumpkin, Ginger Snaps and all orange text, the missing persons on the bottom. I just think this is an awesome shirt. And, of course, you do have Catherine Isabel and Emily Perkins in the middle here who are just awesome. And I believe that is the one-sheet poster design is the two of them in the front. So I was just like, I got to pick this up. It was from Creeporama, if anybody's interested. I know these were available for pre-order. Their warehouse is in Florida, though. So I don't know what they'll be doing. Of course, any of my Floridian Graveyardian friends, stay safe, stay inside. It is horrible from what I've heard is going on down there, and what I've seen. It's actually quite real horrifying. I feel terrible for anyone that's stuck in that stuff right now. So I don't know how early you'd get your stuff. But I did pre-order this, and this was shipped out way before. So thankfully, I got lucky on there. But also, speaking of female horror movies that I love, people probably hate me for saying this, but this is one of the movies that made me fall in love with horror movies. Like, there's no doubt that this is one of the earliest horror movie memories I had, was watching this movie. I want to say I was 3 or 4 years old, and it was on TV. My grandfather had it on, and I just fell in love with it. It was mainly because of the lead, Kristy Swanson. And, of course, also on the shirt is the late, great Luke Perry. And, of course, it is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is I'm pretty sure the exact original one-sheet poster with some additions on the side. I went with the purple, like blue tie-dye with this. And I don't know, man. I just think this is a killer shirt, man. Like, come on. Can you just see me in a bar eating some mozzarella sticks and drinking some fucking Cokes with lime? I mean, that is a badass tee, if you ask me. I might have to rock this tomorrow when they're doing the Ringu and, of course, Cabin in the Woods double feature in the local theater by me. I'm going to probably hit that after work, and maybe I'll just be rocking my Buffy gear because, I don't know, I'm just a huge fan of this movie. I think this is just a really underrated one, and I thought Creeporama did a really good job with the design here of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So she knows the sucker when she sees one. That's an awesome tagline, man. Long live Buffy, one of my favorite horror characters of all time. And I've always said it's the Stone Cold Steve Austin of horror female characters. It's the female character that everybody wanted to have a beer with. Like, every woman wanted to have a beer with, and every guy wanted to sleep with. And I mean that in the most like respectful, honest way. Is that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was not only a sexual icon and a horror icon, but just a fucking great character overall. I just always loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, whether it be the show with Sarah Michelle Gellar or the movie with, Luke Perry and, of course, Kristy Swanson. Really cool stuff. So very excited to get those in. I guess I can show them one more time. Why the hell not? We got Buffy the Vampire Slayer, bitches. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Can't beat it. And then, of course, my gals, my two favorite sisters in the whole wide world, from Ginger Snaps. Really cool. Really cool design. So Creeperama, thank you so much. I got a couple stickers from them. I guess I could quickly show. Got it. One is like a coffin. I don't know. That's kind of boring. That's like H.P. Lovecraft type of. And then it says, thank you for being a creep. Well, thank you for sending this to me from Florida before fucking Hurricane Irene or whatever the fuck hit y'all. Because, man, that was some scary shit. It still is. But, yeah, that's my shirt unboxing. I thought that was kind of cool. People saying hi to one another. Let's see what the comments. 6 shirt. I couldn't pull off that color, though. My beard would blend in. Dude, that would be amazing, though. Like, you would be really like in the Rocktober season and mode with the Ginger Ninja beard and the, black and red or orange, I guess, t-shirt. That's really cool. Oddly enough, I was live Monday on YouTube. Red Rusty was testing out a live stream on StreamYard, and I was curious if I could join my tablet. I look like a hot mess. Well, hey, at least you could join, right? That's pretty cool. So yeah, no, everybody, I appreciate, the kind words and people that reached out when I wasn't feeling the greatest. It really is fun to be back here. I'm excited to get deep into all things Tales from the Darkside season number 3. And I say without further ado, we fucking do it, baby. Let's do it. Of course, it wouldn't be a season ranking without the wonderful tier list. Now, last time I used a tier list, I reset. So I had my season 2 tier list. I did overlook it, though. There were 3 episodes that got an S from season 2. There were 0 episodes that got an F. So as far as quality goes, if you're talking which of these 2 seasons between 2 and 3 had more quality, I think you have to lean towards season 2. However, this season has more S's, and we'll get into that. And of course, it unfortunately does have more failures because there was not one failure in all of season 2, in my opinion. I thought season 2 of Darkside was just really solid all around. You had 1 episode as a D, and the rest were C or better, which is crazy. And I think over half of them were an A or better. So that's pretty good, and the difference between season 2 and 3, it's like, while this season probably has more home runs, it probably also has more strikeouts, but the season 2 probably had a better batting average, better on base, better OPS, better stuff like that, but not as many home runs. So, it is what it is. It depends on your style. But I'm going to be, reviewing all these episodes, giving you some, recommendations and ones to stay away from. So let's dive right into this, of course, with season 3, episode number 1. This one debuted on Sunday, September the 28th of 1986. That was a great year. Of course, this is the Circus. Newspaperman Bragg debunks charlatans as a way of staying sane. His latest quarry is the obscure circus of Dr. Nis. When Bragg visits Dr. Nis, tries to prove its authenticity. Yes, the Circus. Now, any George Romero fan should see this episode. And if you're a fan of not only George, but the people that would work with George, you would love this episode. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. This could easily be your favorite of the season. What an episode they picked to kick off. Because, of course, William Hickey plays the guy running this circus, and there's this doubtful reporter that shows up, and he kind of says the legend and the aura of this circus that goes from town to town and then seems to disappear without a trace before it can really get super popular. But it sort of has that word of mouth trend, and he shows up and he says, hey, we have the word of mouth going on for this little circus of yours here, but I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's behind the curtain. I want to see if you're for real or if you're a phony like I think you are. And some of the dialogue in this episode, and this is a theme of the season. I think you have a lot of good writing in this season, whether it be George Romero, whether it be Michael McDowell, whether it be Edith Swenson, whether it be Jules Selbo, some great talented writers. And this show needed it more than something like Crypt. And I know there's always the age-old debate, well, what's better, this or Crypt? There's no doubt that from a production, from a talent, from a budget, from a production value, the Crypt is the better show. There's no doubt. You can't even argue it, even though I'm a Darkside truther. There's no doubt. But I do, and I will say that the writing on Darkside is better. And I do think that it is far more crucial to this show's success. If you have an episode that's poorly written of Darkside, you don't really have a prayer of standing out on your own 2 legs. You really don't. And of course, you kick the season off with a Romero script and Mike Gornick behind the camera directing this. Really cool. And when I met Mike Gornick, we talked Darkside, and he was very, very nice about it. And he said that his favorite episodes of all the ones he did was this one, was the Circus. He said it was just such a, interesting thing to have the score and the kind of look of the episode. It just feels like this desolate Ringling Brothers circus that looks very run down and very like hazy. And basically what the episode is William Hickey bringing out performer after performer. And what are these performers? You'll see one right here on this little picture. One of them just happens to be a Nosferatu-esque vampire that they have a live sacrifice, and it feeds on a rabbit. And it is so gory and horrifying. And man, the first time you see that, I'm sorry, but you can't not like shiver. It's just such a creepy design. I mean, look at that vampire, man. That is as scary as it gets. And the guy under the makeup, the latex, was none other than Ed French. And Ed French was a huge, character actor and stuff like that. And he always could make himself look different, make himself look unique. Of course, he does play the devil in the opening episode, the pilot Trick or Treat, which if you're a fan of that episode, another Romero script, he plays the devil character in that. And he shows up in this to play a Nosferatu-esque vampire. And after presentation, and all of it looks so raw and gritty and real and disturbing. And I thought that was where this episode really worked, was its authenticity that William Hickey is trying to prove to this guy. And he's becoming, more and more of a believer. And hey, do you want to see back there? And of course, you probably could see where it's going. I mean, of course, you have this doubter that, I don't believe this. I don't believe this. And more he's believing. And then by the end of it, spoiler alert, he becomes a part of the circus. He becomes one of the acts. I won't say exactly what act, but it's a twist you could see coming. But I thought it was well written enough. I thought the aura of this episode alone just made it a slam dunk, grand slam, Darkside episode. And it had a little bit of everything. It was creepy. It was fucking raw. It was gritty. You had Gornick behind the camera. You have Romero writing great dialogue. William Hickey just has a grand old time playing the heel in this. He's just so entertaining. People don't know William Hickey. Of course, he's in Christmas Vacation. I always remember him as Uncle Lewis. And they want you to say grace. Grace, she died 30 years ago. The blessing. That fucking guy. Like, William Hickey's the best, man. And he's in a ton of stuff. I just love William Hickey. I think he's so great in this episode. And it was really fun to see him, really get to play this over-the-top heel. To me, the Circus is the perfect season opener to me. Like, the Circus is just a slam dunk Darkside episode. It has a little bit of everything that you might be looking for when you want to watch this show. And to me, you just can't go wrong with a script from George and Gornick behind the camera. You just can't. It's the total package. It really is. And I know a lot of people that would say the season peaks right here. I don't feel that way. I really don't. I think you have a lot of home runs in the season, but you also, like I said, have some strikeouts, which we will get to. No comments for the Circus, so we'll just move right on to the next episode, which was kicking off Rocktober of 1986. This one, of course, debuted on Sunday, October the 5th of 1986. This is season 3, episode 2. This is I Can't Help Saying Goodbye. Asthmatic Max Smith is dating Libby and plans to marry her until he learns that her sister Karen appears to be able to make people die by touching their faces and telling them goodbye. I really used to love this one, which was so heartbreaking upon a rewatch because I was so giddy to rewatch. I was like, I loved this one when I was younger. This was an awesome one. I don't know why, but this one fell off a cliff for me. It really, really did. Like, and I know people that swear by it, say it's one of the better Darkside episodes. I don't see that at all. I really don't. Upon a rewatch, I thought this one was actually quite a letdown. Of course, it stars Brian Benben. He's marrying this woman. It opens up all hopeful and cheery. Of course, the sister, Karen, is going to be, his wife, and she has this younger sister played by Allison Sweeney. And if you don't know who Allison Sweeney is, she's become like literally the biggest Hallmark actress that there is. She's like fucking Allison Sweeney is the Sydney Sweeney of fucking Hallmark Channel original movies. So if you like Hallmark Channel original movies, Sydney Sweeney, I mean, not Sydney Sweeney, Allison Sweeney. You're gonna watch, this is the rise, I guess, of Allison Sweeney. Of course, they're happy, they're getting married, and basically what happens is the kid can see when you're gonna die. And instead of saying, you're going to die, I saw a vision, you're going to die, she puts her hands on you and goes, goodbye, mommy, goodbye. And basically the scene opens where she tells mommy goodbye. They leave the house and something goes wrong in the kitchen and the oven explodes and the mother dies in a horrific, sad, tragic way. And then later in the episode, she's playing with her friend. They're having a good time. And basically the kid is going to leave. And she goes, oh, my mother's outside. And Allison Sweeney looks at her again and goodbye. And she's like, what the hell? What are you doing? Get off me. She goes outside, trips down the steps and gets hit by a car. And that happened. Like, I don't mind the setup. And as a kid, I don't know why. I thought this was a great episode. I was like, I love this. Where this episode falls to me now as an adult, the acting in this is so bad. If I was Brian Benben, I honestly would be embarrassed to be in this. And I love Brian Benben. I love I Come in Peace. I love Dear Woman. I love Brian Benben and stuff. But man, this was an embarrassment from an acting standpoint. I thought everybody, the ensemble, were truly horrific with acting here, to the point where it really hurt the episode for me. The premise is fine, but the technical here really collapses. And again, like I said, writing being so crucial to a Darkside episode, this one it falls a little bit flat. It doesn't have that, next level element to really put it over the top. And I know that a lot of people like this one, so this is an unpopular opinion. But for me, I can't help but saying goodbye. It falls in like the C tier for me. I just, if you had asked me this before I rewatched it, I would have told you this was an A episode or a B on its worst day, like a B+ on its worst day. But man, upon a rewatch, I just thought this was a really weak one. I just could not get into I Can't Help But Saying Goodbye. That was me, though. That was just me. Maybe you'll like it. It seems to be a popular episode. Tales from the Crypt were not widely available over here. We had some episodes on VHS, but the video store, but not many. What about Tales from the Darkside? Did you have availability of Tales from the Darkside? I think what makes anthology series so fascinating is that they are almost like a fairy tale. Each of the, yeah, totally. That's a totally good way to put it. Slasher Fred checks in. What's going on, Fred? Hope all is well with you. Which brings us to the next episode, which we're starting this show off hot because, I guess I'll have to give it in preface exactly how I did with the Twilight Zone when I got to this point with Twilight Zone. Over the course of this series, there's 90 episodes of Tales from the Darkside. There's, of course, 2 unofficial ones, and there's also that great fan-made one that's animated on YouTube. If you're a fan of the show, you have to watch that. It's called The Suit Man, which is, to me, one of the best Tales from the Darkside episode that wasn't produced by the original producers. But over the course of 90 episodes, 92 episodes, 93, if you want to count that one, there has to be a best, and unfortunately, there has to be a worst. And now I haven't gone back and watched season 4 all the way through, although I don't think this is going to happen. I think that season 3, episode 3, is the worst episode of Tales from the Darkside. We're about to talk about it here. This one debuted on October the 12th of 1986. This is The Bitterest Pill. When an undeserving couple win the lottery, they're rude to the inventor friend, and they ridicule his new invention, which happens to be the superior intellect pills that will make you smarter. Too lazy to clean up the spilled pills, they leave their son to the task. This, in my opinion, is the bottom episode of the series, and I don't even think it's close. I like I said, I will be fair, and I'll watch season 4 again when that time comes, but I don't think this can be topped as being the worst episode. It's not moving from the F tier. I got news for you. That's staying right there. It's in cement. It's in stone. It's just not moving. It is a horrible episode of TV because there is no fucking direction. There's no fucking ideas. There's nothing going on here. It's an obnoxious family. It opens up. They're lazy. They're sitting on their couches. They fucking win the lottery miraculously when the kid sees the newspaper. Oh my God, we won the lottery. And instead of all the interesting things you could do, like how people let themselves go, or maybe how good people, once they win the lottery, can turn to some bad things, or how bad people, maybe the inverse, maybe it would be something where we want to help others, because we were stepped on our whole time and our whole lives. There was so much you could have done with this, to me, that could have made it interesting. Instead, what they decided to do was this fucking asshole family win the lottery. They still act like assholes. Then their uncle or cousin or whatever, the cousin Eddie might as well have been, comes over, says, I've invented this pill that makes you smarter. And if you take one pill, it'll make your brain overload and you'll be the smartest person in the world. You can impersonate birds. There's a point in this episode where this fucking guy says, hey, have you ever heard this bird sound? And he starts squawking out the window like a fucking bird. I'm like, bro, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, horrible, absolutely horrible. Where I was just like, what happened here? And then, of course, after literally, I'm not kidding you, like 12 minutes of the fucking 21-minute runtime of this idiot running in circles and squawking like a bird, the fucking son comes down the steps and he takes one of the pills and I've written a book called The Bitterest Pill. I took his invention. I invested some of the $1 million in it. I'm a millionaire now. My parents look stupid even though they're still millionaires. Dude, this is one of the worst episodes of any show ever. Like, there is no goddamn doubt in my mind that this is the worst Darkside, man. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Not a laugh, not a fucking interesting idea, not a good performance, not one good moment of direction. It is just a train wreck of a Tales from the Darkside episode. It really, really is. Absolute grade F fucking segment, man. Horrible, absolutely horrible episode of the show, in my humble opinion. I think what makes horror anthology series fascinating is that they are almost like a dark fairy tale. Each segment has an unexpected ending. Sure. But yeah, this one, unfortunately, nobody should give a shit about the ending. This was the low point of the season, in my humble opinion. So let's move on. And isn't it funny that we would get to probably the highlight of the season for me? I gun to my head, this was my favorite one of the whole season, and I thought this was brilliant. I thought this next one was arguably the best episode of season 3. Now, I could be persuaded, but I definitely think that this next one was well worth the watch, and really mostly for the great performance from the lead. And of course, I'm talking about season 3, episode 4, Florence Bravo. This one debuted on Sunday, October the 9th of 1986. Brief plot synopsis. Dr. David McCall is cheating on his emotionally unstable wife, Emily, who is visited by the specter of Florence Bravo, who murdered her own adulterous husband years ago. I think this is the best episode of the season. On the other side of the coin, it's so weird. You'd have the best and the worst 1 week apart, but that's kind of how it fell out to me. Of course, this one stars Lori Cardell. And if you're a Day of the Dead fan, she is, of course, the lead in Day of the Dead. And if you're a fan of Chilly Billy Cardell, he was her father. And he, of course, was famous for Chilly Billy and Chiller Theater. Of course, he's in Night of the Living Dead at the end. He's one of the reporters, Billy Cardell, Chilly Billy. Really cool to see that, Romero kept working with her in this and Iron City Ass Kickers. And of course, Day of the Dead, she is the lead. She's Sarah in Day of the Dead. Her performance here has got to be in consideration for best of the season. I thought she just did a wonderful job in this role as this couple that you are hinted at a kind of checkered past. Right? The episode opens where they're moving into this new home. It feels like new beginnings. It feels like a clean slate. And eventually she kind of hints at that he was cheating on her with one of his students. And he's like, listen, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. You have to forgive me. I appreciate you giving me another chance. Please, let's try to make this work. We have a new house. We have a new slate. I love you. And we're going to try to make this work. And I liked this setup. And she's loving him, she's believing him, but they happen to move into the worst possible house for their situation, whereas the previous owner's name was Florence Bravo, and she murdered her husband, who just happened to be an adulterer too. And the whole idea is that as the episode plays out, the husband goes off for work every day. She's still kind of, trying to find herself, trying to find her bearings. And every day in the house, she'll hear kind of ghost sounds and voices from Florence Bravo telling her he's out there cheating on you, and kind of like bullying her into thinking that her husband is indeed cheating on her once again. And I love her performance, Lori Cardell's performance, as she's trying to push away. She's trying to have benefit of the doubt in her faith in her husband, who has already let her down once. not overtake and not let, this ghost convince her. And Florence Bravo, the ghost voices are just so creepy. Edith Swenson writes the script, and I thought she did a wonderful job of, trying to write that forced narrative of, oh, all men are scum. They'll all cheat on you. They're all terrible. Really like trying to push her off the brink of insanity. And then, of course, there are sequences where, from her perspective, she thinks that her husband may be cheating on her. Like one of the real estate agents, she comes over and they're talking and they're kind of getting friendly and stuff. And she's kind of watching from the stairwell. And he's like, listen, we're just friendly. Like, I'm not doing anything with her. He's like, I fucked up once. Like, I'm not going to do it again. You have to believe me. And then, of course, the entire episode kind of just goes to a boiling point. And of course, there is a very interesting thing where on the floor, there's these 3 boards on the floor where the previous person, Florence Bravo, had killed her husband. She shot him dead. And of course, every time they stand over there, they feel her aura. I liked that. I thought that it was directed really good. And there's some interesting, direction standpoints where when it flashes back, the screen goes all blue. And we'll see Florence Bravo rocking in the chair and saying, he's cheating on you. He's scum. Men are evil. I loved it. I was like, oh, man, this evil fucking ghost bitch, man, like trying to convince this lady. And it all goes to this boiling point, basically, where the husband realizes that this house is not a good place for them. He's talking to the real estate agent and he's saying, listen, we're going to get out of here. We're going to go. It's not good for her. I love her. I want to. But the way Lori Cardell hears it, she thinks that he's talking about running away with the real estate agent. And like, he's like, we got to get out of here. I love Ella. She's like, motherfucker. So fucking Lori Cardell's chilling in the chair, waiting in the rocket chair with a gun. And then he comes up the steps. He's like, hey, honey, we got to have a talk. And she goes, what happened? Did your whore leave? And he's like, what are you talking about? She gets up and just starts popping caps in this guy. He's like, stop. He fucking takes a bump down the steps until he gets to the same 3 boards that Florence Bravo killed her husband on. He's like, please, no. And she shoots him dead. And then the next thing we see is it looks like the afterlife where it's Lori Cardell and Florence Bravo like knitting together in the rocking chairs talking about how they hate men and whatnot. I loved this. I thought this was great. I thought it was creepy as hell. I thought it played on the paranoia and the horrors of feeling that your loved one is cheating on you. And if you've ever been cheated on and you have and live with that horror of paranoia, this episode is able to capture it perfectly. And it's almost the whole thing of, fool me once, shame on you. Don't fool me twice, you son of a bitch. And he wasn't. He wasn't being adultering. He wasn't cheating on her. But it was the own paranoia. It was the I guess ghost of Florence Bravo's past that pushes her to the ultimate brink of insanity and killing this man who was truly innocent. I loved this. I thought Edith Swenson did a great job with this script. If you're a Romero guy, like I'm saying, Lori Cardell is the lead from Day of the Dead. I mean, I just love Lori in this. I thought she did a really, really good job at selling that emotional trauma. I think she was really underrated actress. I think she could have got some good mainstream work because she was just really good, really blue collar looking woman too. Like didn't look like an actor. And I mean that in the best way. Like she still was able to stand out. And that's how, to me, you could tell a great actor, from a good actor. I think she's a great actress. I really do. Florence Bravo for me, man, that's an S tier Tales from the Darkside episode. And my favorite so far of the season. It's going to be tough to talk me out of that one as the best. I thought that was a really, really good one. Now, there are other home runs, though, to be had here, so I'm very excited to get to those. But let's see what the chat has to say. I think we were here. Cinephile Sanity TV. Hey, what's up, everybody? Sean is in the heezy. What's going on, Sean? Hope all is well with you. This one sounds like it could have been a crypt episode. There's one towards the middle that's totally... I can't believe it wasn't a crypt episode, and we'll get there. This one, sure, I can see what you mean. I definitely think there's contenders in this season, though, that could have even more so fallen under the could have been a crypt episode, and this one definitely does fall in that ballpark. You're right. Sorry, y'all, I needed a sip really bad. Fever Dreamland Theaters in the house. Oh man, what's up, Grande? Better late than never. Hell yeah, man. I was a little under the weather, but I'm Gucci Poochie now. We got Vivi in the house, Villainous Vixen. What's going on, my friend? Hope all is well with you. People saying hi to one another. Very nice to see you all back in the graveyard house. As we move on to, of course, every television show, and Crypt did this too. If you look at how they were aired, right? Like every Crypt season, they would do a three-peat at the beginning. So they would do 3 episodes on the opening night, which I think is so cool. I wish television still did that. I wish TV shows, instead of purging the whole season on a platform, give me the first 3 and then make me want more and like milk this out. That's how I would do it personally, but I guess that's just kind of passe at this point, unfortunately. Of course, this was their big Halloween episode. Now, it didn't air on Halloween. It aired a few days before. This was, of course, Sunday, October the 26th of 1986. This is the Geezenstacks. Sam Hummel notices eerie parallels between events in the life of his own family and the events in the lives of his daughter Audrey's dolls. The Geezenstacks. Yes. You want to talk about arguably the scariest of the Darkside episodes, and an episode that truly lives up to Darkside. Like you want to say that name, Darkside. Like there are some silly ones that we'll talk about, like Deliver Us from Goodness. There are ones where you're like, Darkside, it was just a straight up comedy. Not this one. This one is actually terrifying to me, and it always scared me. This was one of the first ones I ever remember watching as a kid, and to me, to this day, I think this is still a terrifying episode. Now, it stars Craig Wasson, who, of course, was the lead psychiatrist, and in the, I want to say 1987, was Dream Warriors. This was right before Dream Warriors. So he did this right before he plays the lead, therapist, rehabilitator guy in Dream Warriors. So it's cool to see him here. I really do like Craig Wasson. He's a good actor. He is the father, and basically one day their uncle comes over and says, hey, I was cleaning out this house. I'm a real estate guy, and look what they left. They left the whole dollhouse. Isn't this cool? I figure I'd give it to your kid. And so they give it to his kid, Audrey. She opens it up, and the doll designs are some of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. They look like little death demons, man. The Geezenstacks themselves, if you look up a picture of what they look like, it is some of those horrifying. They have like black eyes. They're fucking long, gangly, pale, pasty white face, soulless, just horrifying design. Like whoever designed those dolls deserves a fucking award. Like the scariest looking doll I've ever seen in anything. Like really creepy. And of course, basically what happens is as she opens this dollhouse, she starts to get very close to it. And basically whatever happens to the dolls, or whatever Audrey says happens to the dolls, begin to happen to her family. Like she says, oh, Mr. Geezenstack is sick with a cold today. He had to stay home from work. And Craig Wasson wakes up, he's got a cold, and he has to miss a day of work. And he's like, this is weird. There's one day Mrs. Geezenstack comes home with a fur coat that she can't afford. And of course, in fucking, following that vein, Mrs. Whatever comes home with the fucking coat. And she's like, oh, hey, I found it. I know it was a little expensive, but it is what it is. And you watch as slowly but surely this family starts to kind of fall in on each other. And I liked that. I thought the whole horrors of family, I thought were really on full display here. And then, of course, being kind of marionetted through this dollhouse. I thought that was really smart. And it just, the entire episode, you're on this feeling of unease, and has this great orchestral score. I think it may be violin or viola, but they play like the loudest noises, almost like nails on a chalkboard to get you to go, stop. Like, oh, this is horrifying, man. It's just make the bad noise stop. How creepy this is. Really good stuff. I love it. Of course, as it goes on, shit starts getting kind of crazier and crazier. Like you at one point, she says, hey, Mr. Geezenstack hits Mrs. Geezenstack. And at one point, they're having a heated conversation, the husband and the wife, and he goes to hit her, and he's like, you better make sure that nothing bad ever happens to the Geezenstacks. You better fucking promise me. And she's like, okay, like chill out. And then, of course, it kind of has this twist ending where I don't know if I want to spoil it or not. I won't spoil this one. I won't spoil. You know what? I always spoil the endings. But this is a great ending. This is a great episode. I really like the Geezenstacks as this thing plays out. I thought it was really special and creepy, and I liked the finale. I don't know if upon initial viewing you see it coming. Maybe you can, but I really like this one. So the Geezenstacks to me, again, we're going to go with the S tier. I think this is a really good episode of Tales from the Darkside. One that I think obviously does get its due. It's one of the highest rated episodes, and understandably so. I mean, it's really solid all around. That's one of the better ones for sure. Let's see. I think we were here. Grande, what up? What's going on, Kal-El? Kal-El here to save us from Lex Luthor. Craig Watson was in Body Double. That's right. Now I want to watch the Geezenstacks episode. LO might do that later tonight. This is usually the time of the year where I dive back into that stuff. Yes, to me, nothing says October like Darkside. That's why I love doing these shows in October. And like, it sucks to me that there's only one more season, which I'll probably save till next October. But at the same time, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just shoot it, you know. I would love to see Tales from the Darkside get some of HD upgrade someday. Unfortunately, Richard Rubenstein, bro, he holds Dawn of the Dead, Martin, and Tales from the Darkside. He holds all of those, which are all three of my favorite things ever. So I don't believe that'll ever happen. And unfortunately, the footage does exist, but it's probably really beat up. I know a lot of the original music has been taken out if you get these new DVDs, which is really unfortunate. I don't know. I don't think that will ever happen. I think we do have a chance of seeing Dawn one day in a Region 1 release. I think maybe that would entail Richard Rubenstein probably having to die, which is sick to say, but it's the truth. But the cool thing is with Martin, I know the uncut version of Martin is going to be available eventually in Pittsburgh to go to the archives and watch it. So that's going to be really cool when that day comes. I know a lot of Romero loyalists are going to want to see that, you know, the black and white uncut version of Martin. So that'll be a really cool day when that happens. But for now, we wait and we watch the DVDs of Tales from the Darkside, my friend. But let's move on, of course, into the episode that kicked us off into November of 1986. This was Sunday, November the 2nd, to be exact. This is season 3, episode 6. Talking about Black Widows. On her wedding night, a young bride learns a secret about the women in her family. Yes. I mean, man, I have a ball with this one. This was one of 2 episodes this season written by Michael McDowell, if I could fucking speak here. Michael McDowell is the best writer to me on Tales from the Darkside. Like, you want great writing on this show. To me, look no further than Michael McDowell. I thought his scripts were just incredible. Of course, this may have been the time that he was writing the original Beetlejuice, which it's so weird now I have to say the original Beetlejuice, but yeah, he wrote the original Beetlejuice, of course. He wrote the Last Car, which is probably my favorite episode of the show. Wrote so many great ones. And to me, if you want great Darkside writing, I don't think you look any further than him. It's like, to me, it's Michael McDowell, George Romero, Edith Swenson. They were like the best 3 writers of this show. I always thought that they did the best episodes if you really were to, you know, pinpoint the writing standpoint. And this was the only episode that he only wrote. Of course, he does go on to direct an episode that we're going to be touching on, but this one was a blast. Of course, this one takes place in a trailer park, and it's a mother and her daughter, and her daughter's basically very giddy. She's getting married. Oh, mom, I'm getting married. They're very happy about this. And you get the idea that something's off from the get-go. Like, what's going on? Basically, you have this door-to-door salesman come by, and he sits down on the couch, and the mother, oh, hey, can I offer you anything? Can I offer you some tea? He's like, yeah, sure, I'll take some tea. We see a little spider crawling on the couch, and he goes to kill it, and she goes, there's no killing in my house. So he, okay, you want some sugar? No. The next thing you know, this woman grabs this guy like Kane, like choke slam position, and she has this spider arm. And the whole thing is, you notice within the first 5 minutes, it's not like this big twist. These are like half women, half spider creatures, hence the title Black Widows. And of course, the daughter's getting married to this man who she does truly love and she really wants to spend the rest of her life with. But what happens is, you know, on their wedding night, when they go to consummate the marriage, she realizes that, oh my God, I'm not only human, I'm part spider too. And there's just this craziness where there's all these webs in her bedroom and we hear screaming, and the fucking priest from the neighborhood, he comes by and goes, oh wow, this sounds like the marriage is hitting it off. You hear like he thinks they're having sex, but he's really being fucking eaten alive by this spider lady. Dude, I thought this was the perfect mix of black comedy and horror. I thought it was so clever, right? Mothers are always tough on whoever you're going to marry, right? And that has the whole theme of, I don't approve of him. He's too skinny. He doesn't eat enough. He's too nerdy. He doesn't have a good enough job. The classic mom stuff that I don't approve, stiff arms them away type of deal. I love that that's here. And of course, none of that matters really because you're fucking half person, half spider. So I was like, that is a really clever way to come about this and have a kind of creature feature episode, which I thought the effects work when used was pretty solid. I love this. I liked some of the things they did with the camera in this, where they'll have all the webs in the room and they move the camera through the webs and there'll be a guy, he's like, oh no, he's banging on the doors, help, I thought that was fun. I don't know. I thought this was just really clever and funny. Like, I thought this was really genuinely laughable and you're laughing with it for all the right reasons. I thought it was clever. I thought it was really well acted. I really liked this one. Black Widows to me is a great Tales from the Darkside episode. I don't think it's quite an S, but it's a solid A. It's a really solid A. Like, I really like Black Widows. I think it's fun. I think it's clever. I think Michael McDowell, man, may he rest in peace. I think he was just one of the most underrated writers. Like, I just think that it was such a great idea to play on that. Like, you hear Black Widows, you think, all right, it's going to be a serial killer episode maybe. But, like, to play on the actual term and add the spider, the arachnid element in there. And I loved that. I just thought this was really good. I don't know. I'm a sucker for Michael McDowell. I thought he was just a really great writer. So kudos to this one. I really like this one. Texas THC 1965 is in the Heezy. Hola grande. Hola, que tal, senor? People saying hi to Texas. Wasn't Darkside shot on video? Can't be much better resolution than DVD. So that's what I thought. That is what I thought. However, in conversation with Michael Felsher confirmed that these were shot on film. And you want to see a shocked motherfucker. I was never more shocked in my life when he said, I was like, holy shit. These were shot on fucking film. Like, that is crazy to me, but these were shot on film. There are still canisters, apparently. Now, where the fuck are they? I mean, they could be at CBS. They could be in a dumpster somewhere. They could be in a fucking New Mexican landfill for all the fuck I know. But they do exist. And of course, when they released this, they weren't allowed to use those. So they used some real shit like VHS quality and tried to upconvert it to DVD. And that's why these looks like shit. And of course, they changed a lot of the music due to rights issues. So that's a damn shame. But according to him, that does exist. Now, the money it would take to restore that stuff, if it is not already fucking destroyed, which I would probably be willing to bet a sum of money that it is. You could. In a perfect world, Tom, you could. Now, we don't live in a perfect world. Do I think that's ever going to happen? No. Am I getting my hopes up? No. But the answer to the can't be much better than resolution than DVD, it actually could. If we could find those and they're, in a decent enough shape to, of course, take, the original camera negative stuff, who's to say? Who's to say you couldn't make Darkside look good and restore all the original music? Now, I don't think that day is ever going to happen, so it may all just be a moot point. But a boy could dream, God damn it! Golly gee, Juno 2000s in the Heezy. Hey, Grani, Tales on the Darkside is a great show. Should get a remastered 4K box set over the fucking Friends show. Friends got a 4K box set. Did it really? I feel like the people that watch Friends would not be physical media people. Maybe I'm crazy. As I take a slug of that beverage here. But welcome, Juno. Hope all is well with you. People saying hi to Juno. And I think we're all caught up. Yeah, no. Black Widows to me, man, really, really good one. I like that one a lot. I think it's a fun episode. And it had a good sense of humor to it. This next one was another surprise. And as this goes on, I mean, you could see a little bit of a trend here. This season is very solid all around. I like most of these. And this next one was no exception. This was, of course, season 3, episode number 7, which aired on Sunday, November the 9th of 1986. This is Heretic. Arrogant art dealer, all quotations, Hardy buys an expensive 16th century tempera painting from an art fence, then lands in a court of inquisition to face judgment for his act. Yes, Heretic. Now, This is one upon when I was watching it, I've only ever seen this one other time. So I was like, okay, like this is basically watching for the first time because if I seen it, I saw it as a kid. So I was interested to see this one. It opens up with two guys. One of them has stolen this kind of crate worth of valuable items, and they're going through it and they're talking about life, life of scalping and the life of ripping people off, being a dealer. You get a lot of this interesting dialogue between the two of them about, moralities and stuff like that. And basically, as he's going through the crate, he's finding nothing worth anything. And he's like, "You son of a bitch! Like I paid you $3,000 for this, and there's nothing in here." And they're going through the box until they find at the very bottom of it, like hidden underneath one of the panels, is this very expensive painting, and it's like a religious painting of. You can see it sort of here. You have a man in red, you have a victim, and then you have like a monk character guy. And as he sees this painting, he goes, "Oh my God, I can easily get like 12,000 off this. Like we're gonna break even. We're gonna be swimming actually in the positive. Like we're chilling, bro." And basically, he pays the guy, he gets him on his way. And what happens is the painting sort of comes to life. And they did a really good job at redressing this man's apartment to make it look like a dungeon, like a torture chamber where he is now going to be the victim because he stole this valuable painting. And of course, you have the monk talking to him, you have the man in red, and you have some interesting back and forth dialogue that I thought was really good here. I really liked some of the back and forth here where you did something immoral. Will you learn from your mistakes? Will you learn from your sins? And please, I will. I promise I will. And then of course, as soon as they send him back to his real time, the first thing he tries to do is try to sell it. I'm trying to get rid of this. I'll give you it for anything. It's worth like 12,000. You can take it from me for 5. And he's trying to make it like he's cutting off a deal. So he calls the fucking guy from the beginning back. He says, "How would you like to buy it from me for $5,000 and it's all yours?" And of course, they catch on very quickly that he's doing this and call his ass right back into Inquisition court, if you will. And basically, all hell breaks loose. Whereas he becomes a part of the painting by the end of it. I like this one too. I thought this was really solid too. And again, very dialogue driven. And I mean, this is something about Darkside that you have to realize is they didn't have the budget, right? Like they didn't have the budget. They really had to accentuate the negatives and I don't know how to, I'm sorry, accentuate the positives and hide the negatives. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry. Flip flop, reverse it. They wanted to, of course, show as much as they could show, but these shows could only be in one location. It's not like Crypt where you had all this money where you could be in a fucking casino with Joe Pesci in one scene. You could be on the road with Joe Pesci. You could be in a mansion with Joe Pesci. You could be poolside with Joe Pesci. You could be in a bar with Joe Pesci. You could be in so many different places because they had money, right? You had producers directing episodes like Joel Fat Fuck Silver. Here you don't have that. They had to fucking shoot the entire thing in this apartment and then dress it up to make it look like a torture chamber. And somehow, some way, the production designer was able to do it and really effectively. And that's, again, accentuating your positives and hiding your negatives. We don't have a lot of budget. We can't actually go shoot an on-location torture chamber. How cool would that be? No, we've got to dress it up and we've got to make it look good. And they did that here. And I thought that was a shining reason as to why this show, when it worked, when it was good, could be that much better because of all the creativity and production that had to be pushed from just a little bit of money, And I thought that this was a really interesting one. I liked Heretic a lot. Now, I'm not usually into religious horror or whatever, but I think even more so than the religious themes, this is talking more about the morality of being a fucking scumbag when it comes to ripping people off. Whether it be you selling them one thing or another, that really doesn't matter. Whether it be a painting of religious people or whatever it may be, the moralities and the horrors of being a person that lives that type of life when you're a scoundrel, basically. And will you learn? They give him the chance to learn and just figure it out. And then, of course, once he doesn't, he's right back into the court and he's in trouble. So I don't know. I liked this one. I thought this was a pretty underrated one. I would also come in with an A here. I thought this one was pretty good. And I heard a lot of bad about this episode. And I beg to differ. I thought it was pretty good. Let's see. Let's go back to the comments. And I think we were here. I would love to see that show upgraded, but then again, I'm grateful for the DVD. Exactly, yes. You honestly, I'm grateful too. I don't think we can be greedy when it comes to this fucking show. Now, listen, I don't know about you. I don't know about any of you, but I do feel like we should be greedy with Crypt. It's a criminal offense that Crypt is not out. And Crypt, still, you have to watch like 480p rips on YouTube of Crypt. Like, that's a disgrace that show's not on at least Blu-ray. Because that had the budget. They have those. They 100% have the original camera negatives for that. There's legal reasons, I think, to deal with HBO and maybe some of the producers. But, man, you got to just figure that out. That show deserves it. And that show, it's not like we don't know where the camera negatives are, if they're anywhere, and what they're going to look like if we do find them. There's not that mystery there. So, to me, we need to be greedy about Crypt. I think we can all, I would hope we could all agree on that, because Darkside, it's just not going to happen. You're right. We just got to be thankful for what we got. I remember back in the days during the early 2000s when the Sci-Fi Channel used to show Tales from the Dark Side. That's right, Slasher Fred. And that's really where I discovered this show. Fun fact, I used to come home from school. I would get in around 3:15. I'd walk home. And this show would always be on from like 3 to 4. They'd show 2 episodes. And I would always come home and try to watch one. Like, that was my first thing I wanted to do. Then it was homework. But I always loved to come home and see an episode of Darkside. And I just loved this show. It was on this channel. It was also on Chiller channel. And it was also on FearNet. If anyone remembers FearNet as a channel, those are the 3 channels I remember watching it on. And I remember being like so enamored by the show. And that all those memories of it just kind of flood in right now. Also, Tales from the Crypt should get an upgrade. I completely agree. It's a disgrace that it hasn't. Yeah, they actually did the whole decade on Sci-Fi Channel with Tales from the Dark Side, but the commercial breaks were too frequent, which is why having the DVDs. I agree. Yeah, the commercial breaks, and sometimes they'll cut stuff out of the episode if you watch it on TV. Like, that's the one thing. Like, if you're a nerd of the Twilight Zone like I am, when you watch them on TV, they'll cut like 5 minutes from each episode. And I know it. I'm like, oh, you cut this, you son of a bitch. Like, I know it because I've seen those so many times. The episode that starred the late Robert Blossoms, who was in a lot of movies, including Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and watching the movie, it feels like an anthology movie. Oh, totally. Yeah, no. Close Encounters is a great movie. That's an awesome one. Let's move on here into one I found just okay. This is from, of course, Sunday, November the 16th of 1986, Season 3, Episode 8. This is A Serpent's Tooth. Disappointed with her unappreciative children, Pearl King enlists the aid of a serpent's tooth talisman that has potent powers and produces instant results. This is very average one. Like, maybe you could say it's a little above average, but this one is very much... It's really overacted. It's really kind of cheesy. Like, the word cheesy gets thrown around a lot. This one's fucking cheesy. You have this woman who is not happy with her 2 children. Her son is like, into rocking out, and he wants to become a rock star. She wants him to be a dentist one day. He's not looking forward to it. He's not doing it. He's not really applying himself. The daughter character is dating somebody that the mother doesn't approve of. And it's actually Ron Sloan, who was Junior in Friday the 13th Part 5. You'll see Ron Sloan briefly in this episode. I was like, Junior! The fucking ugliest man in the world. It's the best stew in the whole fucking world, mama. I love seeing Ron Sloan as Junior. Ron Sloan just seems like a great guy. So it was cool to see him in it. And then, of course, there's also this kid across the apartment where he's this annoying brat, and he makes all these faces at her just because. And it's the kid from Big. It's not the kid that Tom Hanks grows up into, or the kid that Tom Hanks eventually at the end becomes again. It's the friend. It's Billy. He's the annoying neighbor in this. And this, of course, was like 2 years before Big. So it was cool to see that. Of course, they're all annoying her, and she reaches out to a friend, and she says, I need something that'll make him listen. And he gives her the serpent's tooth. And everything she says while wearing the serpent's tooth happens. Like, there's one scene where the kid's making this face at her. And she says, oh, if you continue to do that to me, I hope your face stays like that. And his face does. Like, he can't put his tongue back in his mouth. So he's like, bro, I don't know. I just thought it was cheesy. There's the fucking son where she's like, you're going to be an applied dentist. And then, of course, the next scene, he's an applied dentist and he's miserable. Oh, I don't want to do this, Mom. This sucks. I hate what I'm wearing. I want to be a rock star. The fucking daughter, she's dressing like a whore. And she's saying, you're not going to be dressing like that anymore. And then all of a sudden she's dressing prim and proper. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little fucking silly. Like, it's a little, you're like, if I don't know, maybe depending on your sense of humor, you'd find this one funny. I just was after a while was like, this is kind of fucking stupid. The Ron Sloan comes over. And they're all sitting on the couch, and she's trying to get something out of him, and he's just like, oh, yeah. He's eating a sandwich obnoxiously, drinking the Coke. And she's like, oh, you know what? If at this rate, you'll just be a lazy piece of bread. And he becomes a piece of whole wheat bread, and the fucking girlfriend starts screaming, oh, no, run! Screaming, crying, turns this guy into a piece of whole wheat bread. Whatever. It's a little silly. And then basically the mother starts abusing it. And she realizes how miserable she's made everybody around her now that they're listening. And the whole twist at the end is she says something like, I would turn myself into a pillar of salt if everybody would just be happy again. And basically she does turn into a fucking pillar of salt when you see her face on it. And then everything goes back to normal otherwise. Fucking it almost killed me, dude. I mean, stupid, silly, cheesy, fucking weird. I don't know. This one is bizarre. Can I give this a C plus? I think we go C with this one. Like it's there. I don't know. It may be more entertaining than I Can't Help But Saying Goodbye. Like both of them have good premises, but executions are kind of wonky. But I don't know. They're not failures either. Like they're middle of the road. So for me, Serpent's Tooth is kind of right there. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I like Split Personality episode in Tales from the Crypt with Joe Pesci saying, what the fuck is this piece of shit? Oh, dude. Yeah, no, we reviewed that with season 4. I talked about that. That was one of my favorite episodes of that season. Hope Michael Mann, The Keep, gets Blu-rays released. Absolutely. Jared Rushton. That's right. That's the kid's name. Thank you. Serpent's Tooth. Yeah, Anthony watched a lot of these, man. Bizarre. Like, what? Like, really weird, man. And like, I don't know. Maybe there's somebody out here that loves this one. Like I think if you have a sense of humor, a certain sense of humor, you'll love this one. I just personally was like, like the whole time I was just kind of like, like, I don't know. It did make me laugh, but you'll get one in an episode or two where it was my sense of humor, even though a lot of people hate it. But let's move on into another one that was written by George Romero, and for my money has got to be in conversation for one of his best scripts that he ever did. This is Sunday, debuted on Sunday, November the 23rd, 1986, season 3, episode 9, Baker's Dozen. Elderly cookie baker Ruby Cousins Dozens teams up with ad exec Henry Hogan to profit from her baking skills with a plan that includes greed, spousal abuse, and voodoo. Yes. If you're a fan of George, and I know that people will say what they will, and George was a respected guy. I mean, even though I think he's the greatest editor of all time, I do think he was a damn good filmmaker. I think one of his biggest strengths, probably his second biggest strength next to his editing ability, was to write. And George just writes the shit out of this episode. I mean, this is a near perfect episode to me. You have Henry Hogan, this kind of evil ad exec who really likes Cousins. I'm sorry. Let me get this right here. Ruby Cousins Dozens. Too much rhyming there. I got my tongue tied, I guess. He goes to her shop and he's basically putting over all her cookies. Oh, the oatmeal ones, they make me feel strong. The peanut butter ones, they make me feel fast. And he goes each cookie and like what it makes him feel. And he's insinuating that there's something to these cookies. It's not just they taste delicious, and they're also making me feel certain ways, certain attributes. And they're also making me, wonder about this place, what really is going on, what's really in these cookies. And so he confronts her, and she's electric in this episode. She's also in The Jerk. I forget the actress's name. Let me get the actress's name up right here. Mabel King. She's money in this episode, having a grand old time. It's also directed by John Harrison, who of course did the Creepshow score. He directed the Clive Barker Books of Blood, some of the best episodes of the new Creepshow series, the Tales from the Darkside movie. So John Harrison, the guy that directs this episode, goes on to do the Tales from the Darkside movie, which is pretty cool. I really like his direction here. And man, her Mabel King is just so deliciously evil in this as this woman who says, hey, I'm making these cookies with a little bit of voodoo. Like I have 12 cookies, 12 different types of cookies. So that's why it's, cousins dozens. And basically what happens is, he tries to get a partnership with her. She tells him to scram, hit the road. He's like, please, 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 let's do it. And she's like, all right, you know what? Like, let me think about it. And basically what happens is the guy that works the counter is her grandfather. And he kind of, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is her father. I'm sorry. The father comes up to the guy and he goes, listen, she doesn't make 12 cookies. She makes 13. And he's like, what's the 13th cookie? And he goes, you're going to have to go home and find out. And he hands him some of the cookies. And the guy gets out of there and basically realizes that these cookies, the 13th cookie, are like voodoo dolls. And he can make whatever he wants to happen to whoever he's thinking about happen, if he does whatever to these voodoo dolls. Like at one point, his wife is nagging him, I know you're cheating on me. Just admit it. Just admit it. He's like, oh, shut up. And he goes to dip the cookie in some hot coffee. And all of a sudden she drops to the ground. Oh, my knee, my leg is burning. What the hell? And then he looks and he like smiles and dips the other leg in the hot coffee. And she's screaming, my legs, there's something wrong. So he comes to the realization, oh my God, these are voodoo cookies. And I can take out whoever I want, any villain, any person that gets in my way of my ad executive, I could take them all out. Anyone that comes my way, I can just simply get rid of them with these voodoo cookies. And that's basically what he does. He rises to fame. Mabel King starts getting some kickback money and she starts to know what's going on. Like, all your enemies are just disappearing, You're just burning them up alive or crushing them or chomping them or whatever. And I thought that was so creative. Like, what a great idea from George. A fucking evil voodoo bakery where you could turn people into voodoo dolls, your worst enemy. And man, some of the dialogue in this episode I thought was just, I was remiss and taken aback by. Like some of the stuff between Mabel King and her father. There's a really interesting point where she says, you're a rat, you know that? You're a stinky, filthy, rotten rat. And he's, no, I'm not. And she goes, well, me and mother, she tells like this kind of tragic backstory where you can tell that this father was a drunk and he didn't work and they had to work their asses off and they had fallen on hard times. And she's ridiculing him. She goes, you're nothing but a rat. And that's what I'm going to turn you into. And there's an interesting scene where she plays with the cookie dough and makes a rat out of it. And when we cut back to the actor, he's a rat and he's crawling on the floor. He's literally a shop rat. And I thought that, I was like, man, that's creative too. Like what an interesting thing. And again, Friday the 13th Part 5 fans, that's the grandpa character of Reggie the Reckless. That's the same actor. So he's in here. I was like, holy shit, there's so much Part 5 alum in this season, which I thought was pretty cool. That was the following year. I really like this one. And of course it does have your classic Darkside twist ending. I guess I won't ruin that either. But this one's a little bit more unpredictable, I will say. I thought the ending of this one, and it gets a little bit of gory. It gets a little bit gory, and I think in a good way. Let's say somebody gets their voodoo crushed, if you will, but I won't say who. Really like this one. To me, everything I look for in a good Darkside episode: creativity, great dialogue, great acting, a creative, interesting, imaginative idea, and a good director in John Harrison who did a really wonderful job here. To me, Baker's Dozen is an easy S tier episode. I really, really enjoy this one. And now if you're looking and if you're keeping score at home, season 2 didn't have more than 3. It had 3 S's. That was season 2. So we've already surpassed it and we're on episode 9. Isn't that crazy? That we're past it. But the unfortunate thing is we're going to have some lower ones as this goes on. So stay tuned, I suppose. If you ever see that movie, The Wiz, which is one of the famous versions of The Wizard of Oz, Mabel King played the Wicked Witch of the West in that movie. And she's tremendous in this. Like, to me, it's Laurie Cardell is the best lead actress in any episode of the season. Mabel King has got to be best supporting. Like, I wish Mabel King was the lead, really. Because she just eats up the scenery, man. Like, she is here and everybody else is here. She's just electric. I thought she was wonderful in this. Excuse me, guys. I'm still getting over a little bit of something. Split Personality was so great. Oh, I love Split Personality. That was a fun one to rewatch and review when I did season 4 of Crypt. That was really a lot of fun. Oh, boy. Now, we move on to probably my most controversial opinion on this entire show. as we move to season 3, episode number 10. This one debuted on Sunday, November the 30th of 1986. This is Deliver Us from Goodness. Julian Cantrell's bid for mayor in an Alabama town is undermined by his saintly wife Valeria's miraculous behavior. So she decides to change her ways and break the 10 commandments in order to help Julian get elected. I'm not kidding you. That is the plot synopsis. And it is one of the lowest rated episodes of this show. Bottom 10. Out of the 90 episodes, IMDb has this ranked in the bottom 7. And I'm sorry, but this is my second favorite episode of the season. Like, I love this one. Now, funny enough, again, if you're a Romero guy, you got to watch the show, basically, is the moral of the story. It's directed by fucking Warner Shook of Dawn of the Dead, Knight Riders. Fucking Warner Shook, who also directed Comet Watch from season 2, which I also quite liked. I thought that was a good one. Warner Shook is tremendous, and he did a great job with this episode, and I would love to meet him at a Living Dead weekend and tell him, because I thought he just did a great job here. I really liked this episode, and I think it's such a shame that everybody hates it because I thought it was so clever. And this is the one where, before I was saying Serpent's Tooth, it's very much a matter of your sense of humor. I thought this was hysterical. Like, I've seen this to death, and I still laugh like I've seen it for the first time. Like, to me, this is one of the funniest episodes of any anthology show ever. Like, to me, and this is, people are going to be like, Grande, you are on drugs. But I'm not. I'm truly not. I've never even touched a drug. The Tales from the Darkside in this particular comedic episode is better than any Twilight Zone ever that tried to be comedic. I'm not even kidding you. I feel that way. I think this is one of the best like comedic episodes of a, horror anthology show, just because of how fucking absurd and crazy it is. So the episode opens up with this family, and their husband is running for the mayor, and they're having this guy over, this big important political guy. He's this short little fat obnoxious guy who's allergic to everything. He has the southern accent, and fucking basically what happens is he comes over, and like all this weird shit starts happening. Like, he walks in and says, listen, I like good and normal families. That's who we like to run for mayor here. And I think it's kind of a jab at any politicians. Like, it's like, oh, we want it to be squeaky clean and all this stuff. And, of course, he comes sit down. He's complaining about the dinner. I don't like this. And I'm allergic. The only thing I do like is fried chicken. And the wife says, well, I wish I had a bucket of fried chicken for you right now. All of a sudden, this fucking bowl of fucking fried chicken falls down from the ceiling into this guy's lap. And it has like an effect where it goes, and then everyone at the table's like, what the fuck? And she goes, I believe that's fried chicken for you right now. And the guy gets up, throws his fucking napkin and goes, I don't like this. I don't like this family at all. You're not a bunch of normal people. This ain't normal. It ain't normal to have fried chicken coming down from the ceiling. This guy cuts a promo on them and walks out. Bro, I was hysterical laughing. I'm like, what the hell, man? And basically the idea is this woman, Valeria, is so moral and so passionate about her religion and devotion to God that she is a saint, and everything that she says will happen. So she says, I wish I had a bucket of fried chicken for you. It appears. And she has this glow to her that Warner Shook directs. It makes her literally glow. And they have this obnoxious score where it's like, that was so funny, man. I don't know why. And then she's like, listen, I feel so bad. I'm costing you the election. Like, they don't want you to be the mayor because I'm a saint and I glow. Like, what do I do? So she goes to a priest, and the priest is like, well, basically what you'd have to do is do something a saint wouldn't. And she goes like, what? And he goes, well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to break the 10 commandments. But she basically starts to try to break the 10 commandments in order to lose her sainthood. And she has a big old marker board, and she's crossing off, like, committing all the fucking sins, bro. I was cracking up laughing, man. Like, she's like, thou shalt not kill. And she takes a fucking bug and she just crushes it. And she's like, shit, I'm still glowing. Like, I thought that was funny. She's looking at the list and she goes, oh my God, there's only one I haven't done yet. And you see it says, thou shalt not commit adultery. And she goes, well, I don't have to do them in order. Like, I thought that was funny too. I think this was Jules Selbo that wrote this, if I'm not mistaken. I want to double check that. It was Jules Selbo. Dude, Jules Selbo nailed this one. I thought this was fucking funny as shit. I don't know. Now, most people hate this, as, this woman does try to lose her sainthood and she commits all these sins and then learns that at the end she's doing them for all the right reasons. So that's why she can't shake her sainthood. And then she has to basically really do something evil out of doing it for the fun of being evil, and then she loses it, and they kind of all embrace. I thought this was really good. I liked Warner Shook. I just thought, what a good sense of humor he had. I thought this was absurd. It was crazy. There's fried chicken. There's fucking a scene where this lady tries to seduce the priest. Like, she's like, I have to commit adultery. I might as well try to seduce a priest to make it like extra bad so I lose my sainthood. I don't know. I love this. I really love this. This might be my second favorite episode of the whole season. I just thought this was so funny, man. My humor, it's so my humor. I loved it. I'm going to have to say S, man. I love Deliver Us from Goodness. That might be my second favorite episode of the whole season, man. Really, really good stuff. I love it. Really, really love it. No comments, though. I don't know. It sounds like these are underseen. I'm not getting too much love in the comments tonight. So maybe just be a situation where these haven't been seen as much. So hopefully I'm entertaining enough. So I appreciate you guys being here tonight. My throat is sore, though. I won't lie. I'm still getting over a nasty ass cough, to be perfectly honest. So let's move on, though, to another really good one, man. Wow. I mean, I will say this, though. As much as I like this next one, I do think it's a little bit overrated, and a little bit, unfortunately, is because of the acting and some of the direction, even though it is from Michael McDowell, who I love. This is, of course, season 3, episode number 11. This one debuted a whole month later. This was Monday, December the 29th of 86. So Darkside took, after the first 10 episodes, took like a month off until we got to the December block, where, of course, we get our Christmas episode, Seasons of Belief. On Christmas Eve, a father ends his 2 children's boredom by holding them spellbound with a scary story about a fearsome beast known as the Grither. I mean, this has got to be one of the most famous Darksides. I don't know if it's the most famous. It's the highest rated episode of all of them. So if you're looking for going off other people's ratings, this is the highest rated episode of the series. And it's for good reason. I like this one a lot. I don't know if it quite makes the S for me, just because I think the acting from the kids is so shaky, where every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, like if you had kids that could even kind of act, But let me give I already did give a brief plot synopsis. This is a really interesting one where, of course, E.G. Marshall plays the kid's dad, and he is substantially older than the woman playing the wife. I think in real life, he was like 38 years older than her, which I have reviewed this episode before. So I have in depth taken a look at this when I think I did TV episodes where it's Christmas related. I did Night of the Meek. I did All Through the House from Tales from the Crypt, and I did this. And I think I did Buffy. I did a Buffy episode, one of the Christmas Buffy episode. I really liked this, though. And of course, it tells the story of, this family. It's Christmas Eve, and we've heard all the stories and Santa Claus, and they've heard it all before. And basically, E.G. Marshall and the wife keep hinting at, should we tell them the other story? Should we tell them about this? And the kids are like, what story? What story? Tell us. And basically, he tells them the story eventually of the Grither, which is this creature that you shouldn't say its name, because every time you say its name, the Grither gets closer to you, and his ears get bigger, and he has hands, giant hands and veins as big as garden hoses, and he's the size of a popple. They give this great description of what the Grither looks like, and of course you get the classic song, "The Grither is feeling for only one thing." Really cool. I liked how Michael McDowell, again, brings it here. He always brought it. I think he's just such an underrated writer, and this episode is no exception. This was the only thing they gave him a chance to direct. And while I do think he does a passable job, I would sort of in another world like to have seen maybe John Streisig direct this or John Harrison, because I think it would have been a little bit good. I definitely like this episode enough, though. I just think the kids, like upon a rewatch, I'm like, oh man, these kids, like they hurt it a little bit, but it's still a really good one. And it all kind of builds up to, they tell the story and it goes on and on and on. Almost like H.P. Lovecraft writing, right? Like you tell all these things, but we're not seeing the creature, so we're imagining it until the ultimate finale where the Grither breaks the windows and snaps the necks of the parents. Don't say it, don't say the name. And, it was not Santa Claus, as we kind of pan out in this great tragic final shot of the two parents dead in the chair and the kid kind of standing in the middle. Really good one. Really good one. Probably one of the most famous ones of this show, and rightfully so. It's written by its best writer. It's definitely, from the parent standpoint, I think E.G. Marshall does a good job, even though he looks like their grandpa. I like this one a lot. Like I said, the only thing, I don't know if it's a perfect one for me. It's close. Like, I think I have to give it an S because it's just too popular. Let's see. Good Brother Tom says, I have seen this episode and loved it. The Christmas version of Trick or Treat episode in the first season. Yes, totally agree. I saw it after you recommended it on another stream. Yes, that's probably the stream I was talking about, that Christmas one. I really like this one too. The episode Jenna Von Oy, who later played Six on Blossom, her co-star Joey Lawrence, is an underrated sci-fi 80s horror movie called Pulse. Oh my God, yes, I love Pulse. That's the one with the electricity. I love that movie. That's it. It's not the Japanese Pulse from 2001, but that's a good one too. It's the conclusion in this one that makes it so insane. Absolute nightmare fuel if you're watching as a kid. Yes, I think to a child, this would be horrifying. And I did see it as a kid. It doesn't have that profound impact because I don't really remember the initial viewing, but I still think a great episode of this show. And honestly, it just you have to give it the S tier to me. Dominic St. Clair is in the hazy. What's going on, Dominic? Hope all is well with you, buddy. We froze here for a second. I think we're okay. Let me just drag this one up. You know what? It has to. It really, really has to. So we have a 6th S tier. It's insane. And I feel bad because we don't have too many more. If any, I don't think we have too many more. If maybe one more on this entire list. One more. That brings us to our next episode, which is, of course, Season 3, Episode 12, debuted on January the 18th of 1987. So, again, they took a couple of weeks off. It wasn't just like the following week after Seasons of Belief that they aired this next one. As we look at this episode, Miss May Dusa. Jimmy James is playing his saxophone in a New York City subway when he meets an enigmatic woman named May Dusa, who claims to suffer from amnesia and to have caused several accidental deaths. This one, I kind of am a sucker for. It tells the story. It opens up where this guy is like robbing a store, and you see a mannequin of a woman. And basically what happens is this robber, he walks in, looks into the eyes of the mannequin, all of a sudden he turns to stone. And the mannequin turns into this beautiful woman and Medusa, and you get the idea she's Medusa. Of course, hence the May Dusa name. And so she puts these sunglasses on, she walks out, and she's like, oh my God, like I'm free right now. Like I hope I don't want to cause anybody else to turn to stone or anything like that. So she goes underground. She goes to a subway, and she just sort of kind of sits there and sulks, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to hurt anybody else. And of course, this blind saxophone player shows up down there and, starts hitting on her. He's like, oh, my name's Jimmy James. They introduce each other. It's like a nice little love story, like a tragic love story in a vein of a Romeo and Juliet, but with neither of the family parties, I guess. But I liked this one. I thought this was sweet. I thought their chemistry was really good with one another. She at first is pushing him away, and he goes, am I coming on too strong? I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I just, I don't get a lot of great chances to talk to women. And she says something like, oh, it's just my eyes. I've done some horrible things. And he's like, no, we're fine, and he takes his sunglasses off at one point and says, take yours off too. Like, we're going to be fine. And she realizes then that he's blind. Like, he can't look directly into her eyes. Therefore, he can't be turned to stone because he can't see. And the whole episode kind of just plays and talks about the horrors of reaching out, the horrors of fear that you may, cause bad for someone else and in their life. Like you may want happiness, you may want love, you may want to find all of these things, but sometimes you have such toxicity, you have such a bad aura. And in this case, Medusa, you turned the guy to stone. She's afraid to reach out, and he's the same way. He's blind and he feels like he'll be judged, so he's afraid to reach out. And it's through their skeptical, and inability to reach out to anyone else that they in turn find each other. And I thought it was a really nice story. Now, where it becomes Darkside, I thought was really tragic, and I sort of wanted this one to have a happy ending. And of course, it was anything but. The whole finale is we're gonna run away together, we're gonna be happy together, and they had this really nice embrace. And she's, let me go back to where I was. I just want to get a couple of things. She wants to go back to the store. He follows her back to the store. She goes in. She looks in the mirror and turns herself into stone by accident. And then, of course, the robber, he's not in stone anymore. He's like, what the fuck happened? He runs out of there and sees the blind man in the alley and shoots him. And it's just like this whole like really sad, dramatic ending where you're like, no, like, oh my God, this all would have been fine. Like they would have been happily ever after. Like these two misfits, these castaways found each other in this subway, and they both have to wear their sunglasses because they're afraid of showing who they really are to the world. One for a reason of insecurity, the other for a reason of turning someone into stone, or of course killing them. I love that. I thought that was really deep, and I thought, again, good dialogue, really good dialogue. I liked these characters. I felt their emotional spark and connection. I really like this one. I don't know if it's quite an S because it's very dialogue driven. Like I'm saying, there's not a lot of action in these. There's some of these that are, if you don't like dialogue, you're not going to like these. Like I could see somebody saying, oh, fuck, like I don't like this at all. I could see that. I just think that it was really well done. It's not quite the S, though. It really isn't. I think it's a solid A. So Miss May Dusa, I think, is going to be a solid A. I really like this one. This is one that I don't know if it necessarily had to get dark. And I wish it almost had ended happy because I liked these people. But unfortunately, that's what happens here. And I thought it was effective. I thought it was rather effective in the story that it was trying to tell here. But let's see. We got Tom saying, whoa, that took a dark turn. Great story. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this, I did not see the ending coming. I was like, oh, this is, well, and then you realize, okay, I'm watching Tales from the Dark Side. Like, how is this going to end? And it ends very grim. This makes me sad just hearing you describe it. Yeah, it's a sad one. It is a sad one. Like if you're a hopeless romantic, and I obviously can be at times. I just bit into this story. Like I played right into their hands. I thought this was a really, really good episode. So that's my humble opinion on that one. But coming up next is another really good one. I mean, this is a really good season of TV, in my opinion. It really is. As we move on to season 3, episode 13, the unlucky episode, if you will, debuted on Sunday, January the 25th of 1987. This is The Milkman Cometh. Ruth Cooley is curious as to the reason why her husband Gary leaves unusual written requests in their mailbox for the mail carrier to fulfill. The Milkman Cometh. Now, of course, if anybody likes good actors, I mean, you look no further than this guy right here, who, I mean, I just love. Ever since I saw Jackie Brown, Robert Forster. I love Robert Forster. Of course, I know he worked with Lynch. He worked with Tarantino. He worked with some of the greats. I always really like Robert Forster. May he rest in peace, because he's the lead here, and he just gives a great performance as well. I would say from a male perspective, this is the best male performance, I would say, of the season. He does a really good job here as this guy who is the head of this family that is on hard times. We open up and he and his wife are talking about things they can and can't afford. Their son comes in the room and he tells the dad, "Hey, Dad, have you heard the story of the local milkman?" And the father says, "What do you mean? What are you talking about, the local milkman?" He goes, "Well, if you leave a note for the milkman and request something, the milkman will come by and give you whatever you want, as long as you in turn give him a treat." And the father's like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh, well, Billy, whatever, he got all this money and left him a box of chocolates. And the milkman came back the next morning. There was a ton of money on alongside the milk. And so asked for a Ferrari and got it the next day. And he goes on and on telling them about all these people that if they request from the milkman, will get whatever their heart desires. And if you're falling in hard times, that just sounds like the most enticing thing in the world. Let me write a letter to the milkman. What could I possibly miss? I could give away a box of fucking Edam's chocolate chip cookies. If I'm going to have a brand new fucking Ferrari in my garage the next day, why the hell not? So the whole idea is, at first they kind of laugh off at the son, and he sits down and starts to reflect. Robert Foster has a lot of internal conflict in the episode, and he and his wife go back and forth about what's going wrong, right? They're on hard times. They're struggling to scrape pennies together. They have a situation where they're highly implying that the wife had a miscarry, and because of this miscarry, she's not able to conceive anymore. And they're all depressed. It's a sad, sad time for Robert Forster and his family. So what harm could it do to write a letter to the milkman? And so that's what Robert Forster does. And all of a sudden, it seems like all of your troubles are gone. He has money all of a sudden. The wife is not so sure how. He has all these things. His neighbors are coming over, and they're talking about it. Oh, what did you ask for the milkman for? Oh, I asked the milkman for a brand new plasma. Look at it. It's great. All these great interactions talking about these great things that they were able to be afforded by the milkman. And the direction here is really good. I believe this one was John Streisig. If I'm wrong, correct me. I don't want to click on it and break my mojo here. They have these interesting shots of the milkman walking on the porch, and you hear the footsteps. We see the shadow, but we don't quite see the milkman. We just hear the dangling of the bottles. We hear the liquid in the bottles and just the noise. And it was really smart to do that, to keep me in suspense. Who is the milkman? What does the milkman look like? And we never see his face. And I thought that was really smart. Of course, things kind of go out of whack, and the wife says, hey, you're not going to believe this, but I'm pregnant. And we're like, holy shit, like they fucking somehow got this lady pregnant. How did that happen? Like, how is that a possibility now that she, couldn't carry or conceive anymore? And everything seems good. Everything seems all well, until the neighbor comes over one day and says, listen, my wife died last night. And he's like, what the hell happened? What happened to your wife? And he says, well, I made a silly request to the milkman. And he said, what did you do? He says, well, I really haven't loved her for a long time, and I did a horrible thing. And I wrote to the milkman, I want someone else. And by any means necessary, I want this other person. And basically what the milkman did was he gave them a car without brakes. So to get rid of the wife and to, get this guy, the woman that he really wants, they took out the wife inadvertently. And you're like, holy shit. Or was it inadvertently? I guess obviously that's up to interpretation, which it probably was inadvertently. And he's just destroyed. He's like, I killed my wife over a note to the milkman. He's like, what did I do? And I think it taps into the horrors of what you can become when you're given the keys to the kingdom, right? What would a little kid do if you gave him the keys to a chocolate factory? Probably a bunch of crazy shit. What would a monkey do with the keys to the factory of a banana factory or whatever? You get that whole idea here where once there is no limit, how far will you push your limits? And of course, we see the horrors that kind of play out. And there are scenes where Robert Forster tries to talk to the milkman and catch him. And, hey, I just wanted one more thing. He gets kind of crazy about it until we get to the finale, which I loved this finale. I thought this was classic Darkside, where Robert Forster, he tries to trick the milkman. He leaves him a big, big treat. And basically he tries to run out at the same time. He trips, he falls. And he says, one thing, just make sure the baby is healthy. The next morning, the baby is born, and the son comes down with the cloth, and he looks up at the dad, and the fucking baby is like an alien baby. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I love that, man. And you get the idea that, maybe, just maybe something happened with the milkman and the wife. But man, I love this one. This to me is the last true S tier episode of this season. I loved this one. I thought it was really well acted. Loved the story, loved the dialogue, loved the themes of horror. The direction was really good. I will see who directed. I'm almost positive it was Streisig, but I don't know. Sorry, y'all. My throat is killing me right now. It was Streisand. I'm good. I'm good off the top of my head, baby. I'm good off the top of my head. Let's go here. One of the last appearances that Robert Forster did was appearing in an episode of Amazing Stories remake. I didn't know that. This episode feels like it takes place in the 1950s because basically the milkman delivery was always being stereotyped as a happy. Exactly, and I liked the idea. Like what a sinister. What if the milkman came and give you everything you wanted? I thought that was really cool. The milkman made his wife pregnant somehow. Made me laugh. Well, that's basically what happened. I mean, you do at one point see the milkman grab for the chocolates, and it's like an alien hand. And then when the baby is born, it looks like it has similar. So you get the idea that the milkman's wife may have had some alien marital affairs. Pre-species. Nice twist on the monkey's paw type story. Absolutely. And post Life Force with Toby Hooper. Yeah, for me, the last S tier of this, I would totally say this S tier as well. I really, really like this one. The Milkman Cometh. Really like it. So let's move on into, I'm sorry. Nice twist on the monkey's paw. Got milk. Poor pun, but seems fitting for this episode. I guess you could say the milkman delivers. Yeah, that's the way. That's the spirit. Absolutely. The milkman cometh. Yeah, you can spell cometh however you want. But let's move on into the next episode where Tom, if you're interested, I was saying before how some of these do feel crypt. This is the most Tales from the Crypt episode of Tales from the Darkside. We're going to talk about this next one right here, which was, of course, I'm sorry. I just want to click on the here and it froze on me. I think right here. Okay. Season 3, episode 14, which debuted on Sunday, February the 1st of 1987. This is My Ghost Writer the Vampire. Hack horror writer Peter Prentice receives an offer from vampire Count Jeffrey Draco. 900 years of authentic vampire stories to use as material in exchange for sanctuary in Peter's home. I really like this one. And to me, the reason that it feels so crypt is that this is the only Tales from the Darkside episode in the entire series to be based on a comic. This was based on a comic. Now, I believe it was an EC comic. I'm not 100% sure, like the exact issue, whatever. I didn't look into that, but I do know that this is the only Darkside based on a comic, and it feels very crypt tonally. And I loved it for that. I thought this was such a change in pace, and it really does not feel like Tales from the Darkside. Now, of course, you do have your one location gimmick that Tales from the Darkside love to do. You have this guy who's a stymied, stifled writer. He is trying to write a hit, and he's working with this female writer that they can't just figure out anything. They can't get anything to work. They can't get anything to sell or stick or anything like that. And basically what happens is, in the beginning of the episode, she tells him, you don't appreciate my writing, and he goes, get out of here, screw off. And she leaves in a hurry and gets upset. And basically what happens is, through a one way or another, he conjures up Jeffrey Draco, who's a real vampire. Of course, I guess a take on Dracula, Dracula, close enough. And for 900 years, I have been the vampire. And he comes in and basically says, hey, I will give you all these real vampire stories that you can publish, in return for, room and board, basically. And, give me my coffin, we'll make a little room for me. What do you say? And they make the deal, and he becomes this famous author. All of a sudden, his books are selling like hotcakes. They're genuine. They're real. He's become Stephen King overnight. It's become this big phenomenon. And then, of course, the person who's most curious is his original writer. She comes back and she goes, I know something's going on because you don't got a lick of talent in your entire fucking cottage cheese stretch mark ridden body. She's blistering this guy, and he's just like, no. It's all me. I sat down. I finally channeled my creativity. He's full of shit. And basically, he decides to turn on Draco. He goes back on his word because he doesn't want him around anymore now that he has all the success. And basically stakes him, and he turns to like dust. And there's an interesting thing in this world, in this vampire lore, if any drop of blood hits the dust of a vampire, they'll be reborn. And that's pretty much what happens is, she cuts her hand, and then she goes, oh, what's this dust over here? And drips the blood on it. All of a sudden, Draco comes back and kills his ass. And then basically the episode ends where he makes a partnership with the original writer. I thought that was funny. I thought this was this was a cute episode. I liked it. It was very crypt feeling, like the tone of kind of tongue in cheek, playing with the rules of a vampire. This is a lot better than the Tales from the Crypt with Malcolm McDowell in the fucking, that one sucks. I hate that Tales. That's the worst one of season 3 of Tales from the Crypt, is that episode with, I can't think of the damn name, but this one is a lot better version of that, like with the humor and going with a situation where it's a vampire. I would say a solid A. I like this one a lot too. I thought My Ghost Rider the Vampire was a really, really solid one as well. So I really liked this one. Highly recommend that one. As we move on, oh boy, these next few. See, probably so far you're like, this has got to be the greatest season of television history, right? I mean, you have 3 episodes that are less than an A or an S. Well, this is where the shit meets the fan, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much all but 1 or 2 of the rest of these, because man, some of these were just pretty brutal, unfortunately, as this season, I guess, was a little bit 2/3 and then kind of drops off right around here, in my opinion. As we move on to season 3, episode 15, from Wednesday, February the 18th of 1987. This is My Own Place. A young man gets a great deal in a New York apartment, then discovers he has a mysterious roommate. This episode is fucked up, in my opinion. Like, it's not funny. It's actually kind of like, I don't want to say the word offensive, but it could be taken offensively. This is absolutely got to be in consideration for the worst of the series for me. It basically opens up, this guy is, I got a great price in an apartment. The real estate person is this like person of Indian descent, and they're saying, oh, you have to pay this, and he's like, I'll have my rent the first week of every month. Like, this is great. I don't have to worry about this. Like, what a great deal. He tells his girlfriend about it. All of a sudden, he has a Hindu roommate, and he's never explained. There's never a reason, a rhyme, anything as to why this guy, he just shows up and he's like, I don't know if he's a ghost. I don't know if he's Kazoo. I don't know who the fuck he is, but he keeps popping up and he's like, oh, hey, I'm going to sleep on this side of the room. And he's like, what the fuck? And we never get an explanation of who the fuck this guy is, this random like Hindu roommate. And basically, the whole episode is just this guy who lives in this apartment saying all this horrible racist shit to him. He's like, go take a car to Calcutta. Like, this is the shit he says to him. I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, this is fucked up. I don't know what the intent was here. I don't know if this was trying to be funny. I don't know if this was trying to say something about classism or saying something about the horrors of racism. I don't think so. I really don't think so, because the guy that is in the apartment, like, nobody's sympathetic here. There's nobody to root for here. There's nobody to like here. It was just an entire episode of one guy insulting the other until the other guy basically goes crazy. And then the end of the episode is they're showing another person the apartment. And it's a great price. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, a New Lease on Life from season 2 did this way better. And they didn't have to go resort to bad racism or corny jokes or like offensive, fucked up dialogue. This is honestly, I think this is too far. Like, it's not entertaining. It's like people look at a movie like Fight for Your Life and say that's too far. That's an exploitation, rape, revenge, grindhouse video nasty. Like, in that aura, it fits, because you do. These are evil villains. They're going to get their comeuppance. You root for the family. There's a baby face and there's a heel. Everybody's a heel in this. There's not one person you like. The fucking real estate lady's setting you up. Oh, it's a great price. No fucking wonder. There's a fucking Kazoo in here. And then the other guy is just being this asshole racist dude. And then the other guy is just like, buddy, this isn't your house. Like, it's holy shit, what a train wreck. Like, an absolute train wreck to a season that I thought was so strong to this point. And man, you got your second F right here, is My Own Place. And arguably, it's got to be in my top 5 worst Darksides. I don't know if it's number 2. Like, I would really have to sit down and do my top 10 least favorite, but it would absolutely be on the list, and I'm assuming it would be towards the top. It's not as bad as The Bitterest Pill, just because it's not as annoying, and you don't have somebody squawking like a fucking bird through 12 minutes of the episode. I guess I'll take the fucking, horrible characters over 12 minutes of squawking. I think squawking is maybe where I draw the fucking line. Maybe that's just me. But let's see what y'all have to say. Speaking of the Monkey's Paw, the original Pet Sematary movie was inspired by the Monkey's Paw because in that story, after the son dies, the wife can't accept his death and wishes him to come back from the dead. This episode has Nancy Travis, who was in a lot of movies, including Three Men and a Baby, and that movie that had a very scary urban tale. Which one? The episode I'm talking about now, or was it the episode before this, the My Ghost Rider? I'm curious because I actually don't know. I don't know that. I know there is an actress in My Own Place, but it's, my God, what a horrible one. Let's move on, though, into another one I don't like. I'm sorry. Maybe some people like this one. I'm not one of them. This is season 3, episode 16. Austin 316 says, I just kicked your ass, which debuted on Sunday, February the 15th, 1987. This is Red Leader. Oh, so they have these out of order. That's weird. This one debuted before My Own Place, so weird enough. A corrupt businessman is offered a top position in hell by the devil. This one, this is just not my cup of tea. Maybe people would like this. I don't know. I didn't care for this at all. This is directed by John Harrison, who I like, but it's this obnoxious, snotty businessman. He lives in a building, and at the beginning, this lady comes in, tells him off, tells him you're this piece of shit. He goes, oh, fine, I'm successful. And then the entire episode is taking turns. These people from hell come up and say, oh, you should work with me. Oh, no, you should work with me. And it's like an all argument to try to get this guy who's a scumbag to come down to hell and work with him, all the way until you get to the guy playing the devil, basically, the Red Leader. And he says, oh, I want you to work for me. And he screws the devil. No. And then basically the woman from the beginning comes back and shoots him. And that's it. And then he's in hell. And he's, oh, now you'll work for me. Ha, 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 ha. Bullshit. I'm sorry. Bullshit. I don't like this one. It's fucking stupid. It's not an F. It's really not an F because it is well directed enough and the actors are fine, but it's a D. I think it's a fucking D for me. I don't like this one at all. I really don't. I don't even want to spend 5 seconds on it. Like, it's just such a fucking waste of your time. Moving on. Let's move on into an episode that I really liked. And I thought this one was really kind of disturbing and had a very interesting, like, neo-noir aspect to it. This one debuted on Sunday, February the 22nd of 1987, season 3, episode 17. This is Everybody Needs a Little Love. A divorced man dotes upon a mannequin. This one stars the late great Jerry Orbach, who I just, again, another actor that I just thought the world of. I really, really like Jerry Orbach, whether it be in Law and Order, whether it be in the appearances he had on Golden Girls. Of course, I believe he was Clockwork, and he was in Beauty and the Beast. I can't think of who the fuck he was, though, off the top of my head. Really like Jerry Orbach. I just think he's a great actor. And this one I thought was really interesting from a stylistic standpoint, because they shot it all like a neo-noir. The episode opens up where Jerry Orbach is in a confessional, and he's talking to the police, and they're talking, and he's like, listen, you're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you, but this is what happened. And the rest of the episode, it goes in and out of him, talking to the police, and then him and the story that he's telling. And the story that he's telling is all shot and produced like a neo-noir film. So it's you have that jazzy score. You have some interesting ways and techniques of shooting it. Very much like the Seance episode of Tales from the Crypt. It has a very similar style, which was cool to see in Darkside. It was something they never attempted before or after. So it was cool to see that here. Jerry Orbach and the friend, they're at the bar and they're talking about that they're on, kind of hard times when it comes to women, and what I wouldn't do to have a great gal and a great woman in my life, and I want to get married someday, and I feel like I'm spinning my wheels, and I don't have anybody that loves me, and I'm sad. And they're both kind of consoling and drinking some beer, getting a little drunk, getting a little out of hand. So what happens is they go back to Jerry Orbach's buddy's house, and they start to have dinner, and basically he goes, you know what, I got a surprise for us. I got a girl here. And he pulls out this mannequin from his back bedroom. And he says, look, he starts dancing with the mannequin. And what begins to happen is this mannequin somehow, some way starts to almost hypnotize and possess these two men to the point where they almost believe she's real. And this one is talking and touching upon the horrors of sensitivity when you feel you're alone, when you feel unloved. And I liked it from the male's perspective here, because we've done the story to death from the female perspective of, I don't feel pretty, I feel undesired, I'll do something to feel desired again, and then it's all going to blow up in my face. Like, we do that story to death in horror. Let's be honest. That's a big reason I didn't run out to see The Substance. I've seen Dumplings. Like, I don't know if you're really going to impress me that much, but I'll be fair when I do see The Substance. I just didn't run out of my house to see it, to be honest. But I liked getting back on track, seeing the male perspective of this. Here's two guys that are successful in what they do. I believe they were like cops or detectives or something. They're successful in what they do, but they're alone and they feel the horrors of loneliness. And everybody in the title, everybody needs a little love. And where exactly will you find love if you're desperate enough? And this is the episode that it happens. There's a great scene where he's dancing with the mannequin and Jerry Orbach is kind of watching them, and the mannequin is going back and forth, and it's almost like he's imagining she's real, and he's getting jealous. And there's a really tense scene where they go all have dinner at the house, and he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You really set a plate and dinner for her?" And he's like, "She's my love. I love her with all my heart. Don't you touch her." And there's a point where he starts degrading her, and the guy gets really upset, and then some dishes break, and it just gets kind of crazy to the point where you're like, what is going on? It would be an S. It would be an S. The ending collapses in on itself. I don't even know how to explain the ending. I don't understand the ending. Was she real? Was she not? Was she fucking with them? Did they go so fucking insane that they thought a real woman was a fake woman? I don't know. It's never explained. It's so ambiguous and poorly done that it's like the biggest, like you really had me going for like 4/5 of the episode. And that last fifth, I was like, what the hell happened here? Like, I don't understand the ending of this. I really don't. Like, maybe somebody could explain their interpretation of the ending, but I think you'd only be doing just that. I don't think there's a concrete answer as to what was going on here. And if there was, the filmmaker failed. And I do believe this was John Harrison, who, with everything else, I thought did a great job of capturing that neo-noir atmosphere and environment. I thought that was tremendous stuff. But the ending here was just totally fucking fumbled at the 1 yard line to me. I mean, it was just a fumble. And that prevents it from getting the S tier. That makes it a absolute A for me. It's still really good, but man, they fumbled the ball at the one here. They really, really did. But I'm curious to see what y'all have to say. Let's see. I think this one needed to get even goofier or something. I don't know. It did not come together for me at all when you met Red Leader. Yeah, I don't know either. Like, it did feel tonally like it was trying to be funny, but at the same time trying to say something important about, people that fuck people over in real life. They'll end up in hell working for the devil. Like, that could have been done much better, but the whole episode is so stupid that by the time you get there, you're like, it just doesn't hit. I don't know. It just didn't hit for me. Let's see. Sounds like this season of Darkside is foreshadowing season 6 of Crypt for quality. It's weird, man. Like, I do like season 3 of Darkside, and you can make a conversation and an argument that it's the best season. I still like season 2 because I think you're more like well-rounded. Whereas this, look at them in A's and S's. I mean, but the ones that are bad are like horrible. Like My Own Place and The Bitterest Pill are two of the worst episodes of any show ever. It's not just this show. It's like, if you wanted to make a top 10 worst episodes of shows, they could be argued to be on there. And that to me is what really hurts it. It's like, it's not just that it's bad, it's that it's awful. And that's really what takes it down for me. If you guys ever see that underrated Ridley Scott crime thriller, Someone to Watch Over Me, Jerry Orbach played the directive in that movie, and he later played one of the original Law and Order. Yes, which I got vibes of that character that he plays on that. Like, it's the way he was talking to the police. I was like, oh shit, like, always really liked Jerry Orbach. I thought he did a good job here. I was surprised to see Jerry Orbach at the beginning of The Sentinel. Oh, me too. I love The Sentinel. That's a haunted house movie I just don't watch enough, man. I've got to watch that one again. If you and people were disappointed with the ending, I can't see me enjoying it. Yeah, I don't know, man. And Anthony did an awesome episode doing his top 10, and it blew up. Like, it has like thousands and thousands of views. So shout out to Anthony and his awesome top 10 Tales from the Darkside episodes. We were talking about it over dinner, me and Anthony, when we went to go see Texas Chainsaw for the 50th anniversary. We were sitting there, and I was like, what did you think of the new man? Like, what was Jerry? And we were just talking, like, the normal stuff two people talk about over dinner. And then, Seinfeld and Curb and stuff. And we had a fun time. Me and Anthony had a good time. Oh boy, this next one, season 3, episode 18, debuted on Sunday, March the 1st of 1987. Elude acquaintances. Two accused witches covet a talisman for its powers, but can't have it all the time. So they agree to take turns keeping it for 1 year at a time through the centuries. Um, this is, to me, the most uninteresting episode. It's entirely dialogue. Once again, you're going with the talisman, but you forget to do what even Serpent's Tooth did. At least it was so cheesy that it was entertaining. This one, I don't think this was entertaining. This was a drag of 20 minutes. And I don't even really want to go into it. It's just two witches arguing. They go from the past to the future, but they're all in the same room. They try to dress it up, but it's kind of cheap. I don't know. I don't know if they were running out of money in the season at this point. I know they back ordered 2 episodes, so they cut it from 24, which was the first 2 seasons, had 24 in the first, 24 in the second, so 48 respectively. Here they cut back on 2 episodes, and you only have 22 in season 3. And I do feel the budget in some of those, like even those 2 episodes being cut, it feels like more money went into it. This one was a total non-factor in that department. Like this was a low. This one feels like the lowest budget of the entire season to me. Really, really uninteresting to me. I mean, it's very close to being an F. It's not, though. It's a D. It's a fucking D. To me, this is a D. It's close to being an F. It's really, really uninteresting to me. I just had no interest from the beginning to the end of this. Like a really big letdown. It's a shame. The end of the season just kind of falls off the rails a little bit. We'll see more here as we dive into. I believe we have like 4 left. Let's see. Let's click here. Freezing for a second. Sorry, y'all. Last 4 of the season here. So season 3, episode 19, debuted on Sunday, March the 8th, 1987, The Social Climber. This was a weak fucking, basically a remake of The Twilight Zone. A shoemaker's assistant discovers that he can live in other people's lives by putting on their shoes. Now, of course, there's the infamous Twilight Zone episode called Dead Man's Shoes, where this bum puts on the shoes of this gangster. And basically what happens is he steps into the life of this dead gangster, and, through the body of this bum, his soul kind of regenerates from the shoes. I loved that. I thought that was really creative. I thought it was an interesting episode. He confronts his girlfriend. He confronts the men that screwed him over. That's a great Twilight Zone. This is a piece of shit fucking Tales from the Darkside. The guy, he works for a shoe salesman. He's getting married, has a beautiful wife. Every night, for some reason, he likes to break into the shoe department and step into the shoes of a celebrity so he can go to all these celebrity parties. We never see him go to the celebrity parties. The entire thing is just talked about. He's like, oh, last night was great. I had a bunch of shrimp. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, motherfucker, we didn't even see you go. Like, oh, the budget for that, it just killed this episode. Maybe if you could have shown this guy stepping into the shoes of other people, but the whole thing takes place in the shoe store. And of course, you can probably see the morality that they have coming. Really weak. I think they've tried this gimmick so many times. I believe there's an Adam Sandler movie called The Cobbler that tried the same gimmick. And I've heard that's one of his biggest piece of shit movies, which is saying a lot in a world where Going Overboard and Jack and Jill ran up the fucking hill with Al Pacino and his Frappuccino. No, I mean, that's saying a lot, but this episode, it's another one, man. I just think it's a D. It's not quite an F, but it's totally a D to me. I don't know. Very, very lukewarm. Very, very lukewarm. Just not a good one. I don't like The Social Climber. I know some people were putting it over. I was reading some reviews, and I don't know. I didn't agree. I really didn't. One of the reasons I haven't picked up Darkside was the production value reminded me of the Monster series. I think, oh, dude, yes, you're exactly right. It was Richard Rubenstein. It was like the exact same, a lot of the same people. And that's, you're right. I mean, listen, like CBS, they just didn't have the money. Richard Rubenstein and, some of the other executive producers of the series, whether it be Bob Hollick or what the fuck is his name? He's in the 4th season as it literally did an episode himself. I can't think of the actor's name. He's an actor producer. He did a ton of the episodes, but his name's not coming to me. Those guys were cheap. I don't even think they would lie to you. I think they'd even tell you they were cheap, which is unfortunate. But yeah, no, I could totally see that. The production value is not in this show, but it is what it is. Moving on, though, into season 3, episode 20. Last 3 here, guys. Sorry if we're a little bit lengthy of a show here. This debuted on Tuesday, March the 3rd of 1987. This is the swap. In the Louisiana bayou, loathsome-looking Bubba is the son of an infamous conjure woman. His wife, Annabelle, is cheating on him with their handsome handyman, Claude. But Bubba has a solution to the problem. This one, for what it's worth, is very much like Crypt 2. Like, it's basically the ugly husband with all these boils and disgusting growths on his body. His wife doesn't love him. She's fucking the handyman. He's well aware of this. He has all this money, though, and they plan, let's kill him. Let's kill him. Basically, he also experiments with all these potions, like poisons and stuff. And they figure, let's feed him one of his potions. Let's just, put a funnel to his mouth and drown him in one of his potions. So they kind of tie him up to the bed and make him think it's going to be like a kinky session. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. And then basically they put this potion down his throat. And what happens is you think he died. Now the fucking handyman and the wife, they could be lovers. They can have, reap his fortune, reap what he's sown. And the whole idea of it is the potion they put down his throat, coincidentally, is a swapping potion. And he swaps places with the fucking handyman. So the handyman starts growing all these boils. And the whole twist is that, he switched bodies. And by the end, she ends up with the same guy with all the horrible boils. Now, again, it felt very Crypt. It felt very like something they would have tried to do, except a lot cheaper, not as great. I do think this one's a little bit above average, though. Like, I always like the age-old tale of the, person that's getting screwed over in a relationship. And then, of course, they get their just desserts at the end. I didn't mind that. Like, the moral worked here. The pacing's fine. It's never boring. It's fine enough acted. It's nothing great. It's nothing, I wouldn't say it's average either, though. I'd say it's a little bit above average. So I think we're going to have our very first B of season 3. Yeah, that's the first one, the swap. With 2 to go, we finally have filled out every letter here. And, of course, this is frozen on me. So it is what it is. Let's go to our last 2 here, though, because I think 2 hours are running a little late here tonight on Grinders Graveyard. But I've enjoyed being back in the saddle again, guys. I appreciate this. Let me go here. Sorry, it's just taking a minute to load. Last 2 episodes here. This one, and it's weird. So that was March the 3rd. We don't get another episode till May the 10th. We had another 2-month hiatus from March to May. 5-week hiatus to be exact, when we get season 3, episode 21, Let the Games Begin. Harry Carson suffers a heart attack and dies in a hotel room, prompting an angel and devil to battle each other over the possession of Harry's soul. This one was fun. I had fun with this one. I thought if you go along with the humor and you really look at how creative an idea this was, I think you could really love this one. Like, I saw somebody on here put it in their top 10. That's awesome if someone puts this in their top 10. I don't know if I'd be in that ballpark. Like, I don't know if this would be anywhere near my top 10, but I definitely think it's an above average episode too. It basically opens up where this man is walking to his hotel room. He's a little bit overweight. He had a great night out. He's drunk. He's happy. And, the guy says, oh, hey, have a nice night, man. He goes, oh, thanks. Had a great time. He goes into his bed and dies of a heart attack. He just falls flat on the bed. He's dead. The next thing we see is this curtain where there's 2 shadows talking. One is a male angel, and the other one is like a female devil. And they're arguing over, okay, I want his soul. No, I want his soul. No, they're arguing and whatever. So kind of like the devil and the angel on your shoulders, but they're arguing in person. And the whole idea is they say, oh, well, why don't we resurrect him and we'll make the final call, whether he goes to heaven or whether he goes to hell. And the whole episode kind of plays out from there, where he turns into the guy's best friend. She turns into this woman that's trying to seduce him, basically. And it's funny, like how this devil and angel are trying to outdo each other. There's some funny gags, some funny dialogue, some funny attempts at seduction. I thought it was funny. It's not laugh out loud funny. To me, it's not deliver us from goodness funny, which I think that's the funniest episode of the series. This, though, I do think there are going to be people with a sense of humor for this that think this is like above average, like way above average. And there totally are people that say this is one of the best ones. I'm not in that ballpark, but that's not to say it wasn't well done too. The acting here was tremendous. The whole, like, the way it plays out, I thought was actually kind of shocking. Like, I thought, okay, one of them is going to screw the other over to win his soul. But the reality is they fucking apparently fall in love, the angel and the devil. and the guy with the heart attack walks out. He walks scot-free. So that's the whole like twist at the end, is that the guy, they resurrected the guy. They were trying for like 30 minutes to resurrect him, and they ended up resurrecting him, giving him another chance at life, which I thought was kind of funny. And I don't know, this one, it had a nice heart to it, pun intended, I guess, being that the guy had a fucking heart attack and then gets resurrected and shit. But I don't know. I thought this one was a little bit above average and likable enough. Our second straight B. I think we got another B on our hands here. Kind of like the the Crypt episode with William Hickey. Oh, absolutely. Yes, totally like that. That's a lot better though. That's a lot better. I would say like miles better, but that's all. I do love Arnold Schwarzenegger, who directs that one, but that's just me. Which brings us to the season finale, which, while it's not the worst, is, of all 22 of these, in my opinion, the most disappointing. There's a difference between the most worst and the most disappointing. I thought this one had so much potential that it ultimately just squandered all of it. Like, I don't know if it captures anything this episode. It could have been a great season finale. What a train wreck. Season 3, episode 22 debuted Sunday, May the 17th, 1987, and finished off the third season of Darkside, The Enormous Radio. A new radio lets the couple overhear their neighbors' private conversations. Right off the bat, I wanted to love this one ever since the first time I saw it. Even as a kid, I was so let down by this one. Now, of course, it's this family. They're in a tenant, and they seem normal. They seem happy. It's a husband and wife. They don't seem like, poor, but they don't seem like super rich either. They're like high middle class, upper middle class. And basically one day they're talking and they say, hey, we need a little excitement in here. Why don't we get a new radio? So they get a giant, enormous radio that they have placed into their tenant. And basically, depending on what channels you use, you can hear conversations between other people in the tenant. Like, one guy's abusive of his wife, one guy's cheating on his wife, one person's doing this, one person's doing that. And I liked that stuff. I was like, ooh, like, probably setting these people up to encounter them, right? And we never really do. It's just a lot of nothing. It's a lot of the episode is literally just watching this woman listen to these conversations, but it goes nowhere. Like, it never kicks it out of first gear. Whereas I think you could have done so much with this. I would have had this been like an hour-long finale and really threw a lot of my budget at this to get more actors involved. But again, being the production company that this was and the producers that you had here, you're just not going to get that. So unfortunately, for this grand, enormous, quote, pun, whatever intended you want to say, idea, this enormous radio, you unfortunately get a very big squandered opportunity here and just a straight up miss, in my opinion. Again, it's not poorly acted. It's not poorly written per se, but it is poorly executed. I would say it's poorly directed. I would say it's the biggest letdown of the season. Overall, this is a tough one to rate. It's between a D and a C. I'm going to go with a C. Yeah, it's like, no, it's a D. Fuck it. It's a D plus. It's probably better than Social Climber for entertainment value, but considering the disappointment factor, I have to move it down a letter. I would say probably C minus, to be honest, but from a disappointing standpoint, it goes down to a D plus. So to me, that's a D plus. I don't know. But that is all 22 episodes of Tales from the Darkside season number 3 reviewed and ranked. So let's take a review of this before we call it a night here on Grande's Graveyard, if this will ever load for me. Let's see. So in the F category, of course, opposed to season 2, you have two failures. The Bitter's Pill in My Own Place. 4 in the D column, which I don't believe we only had 1 in the D column in season 2. So that's pretty wild. So we went from 1 in D or lower in season 2 and no Fs to 6 in D or lower from season 3, which is interesting. We have 4 episodes total in the BC area. So, take those as you may. Maybe some people have a higher rating for I Can't Help But Saying Goodbye or Serpent's Tooth or Let the Games Begin. But you look at these top rows, and this is pretty impressive. You have, let's see, 12 of the 22 episodes are an A or better. So that's like literally more than half of them. One more than half of the episodes, I would say, are an A or better. If I had to pick a top 5 for the season, I'm going to go Florence Bravo, Deliver Us from Goodness, Baker's Dozen. Wow, this is so hard. I don't know. I mean, these are all great. You know what? No, I'm not even going to do a top 5. This is my top 7 right here. The Circus, Baker's Dozen, the George Script, Florence Bravo, my favorite episode of the season, the Geezenstacks, the scariest episode of the season, Deliver Us Some Goodness, the funniest, Seasons of Belief, a Christmas horror classic, and The Milkman Cometh, a really, really deep, story of greed and take on the monkey's paw, like you guys were saying. So I really like season 3. I still would lean towards season 2 just for the consistency, even though you probably have more BCs. You didn't have over 5, 6 of them to be exact, D's or lower. But you had 12, A or higher. So it all depends on how you, I guess, calculate these things. Fever Dream by Theater says, yeah, the Enormous Radio, not great. I think it did not hit as hard for me, only because I jumped around from episode to episode, but it was still a mess of disappointment. Yeah, it was such a disappointment to finish up a rather really good season, I think. Like, it's a little bit top heavy, maybe a little bit 2/3 heavy, where that last third, I felt like spun its wheels a lot. Like, I glossed over a lot of those because there's really not much to go into. Like, allude acquaintances, there's not much to say. It's just dull. There's nothing to really run home and talk about. It's just not. But yeah, that is Tales from the Darkside, season number 3, reviewed and ranked. So, of course, my plan is next October to cover season 4, the final season, and my favorite season. I'm not kidding you. Season 4 is my favorite season of Tales from the Darkside. So I can't wait till we get there. Probably going to be next October when we do it. Maybe I'll surprise myself. Maybe I'll do it one week down the road. But right now I plan to do these. I've done them every October. So why break precedent and not do it in 2025? And then maybe maybe we'll phase into something else. Like, I would love to do Buffy one of these times. I would love to do the X-Files. I would love to. My dad talked about Outer Limits. I don't know if people would want Outer Limits. I really want to do Black Mirror. I think Black Mirror is going to be the next. Like, once I finish Crypt, I want to do Black Mirror. That's my goal. I want to try to do Black Mirror on here because I think that would be really fun to do. So that's my plan moving forward, at least when it comes to TV shows, since we have one season left of this. And Crypt, I'll finish Crypt in early 2025. Like, I'm aiming to do the last 2 seasons of Crypt by 2025. So we'll definitely finish that there. Miss C says the Devil and Angel episode almost sounds like Cabinet in the Sky, 1943, where the Devil and Angel fights for the little Joe's soul, but the Devil and Angel didn't fall in love. Yes, but they do in that episode. Great run through the episodes. Get some rest and see you next time, only on The Graveyard. Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm like 95% better, but I've still got to get there. But I appreciate you guys sticking with me tonight and talking all things Darkside, one of my favorite anthology horror shows. Tomorrow night, I'll be checking out the original Ring in the theater, of course, from 1998, and Cabin in the Woods, a double feature. Weird double feature, but I'm so there. I can't wait. So going to have a fun weekend planned ahead. Thank you guys so much for joining. Next week is the Monster Mash special, where, like I said, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, we'll spin the wheel, make a deal, and talk about one from each decade. I'm very excited to be talking all things monster movies. So get your monster movies on. I'm super excited. I did share it in the community tab if you want to see which movies will be covered from each decade. I did share that. So just go to the community tab. But everybody, thank you so much for watching. Long live Tales from the Darkside, the memory of one of my all-time favorite shows. And we will catch you next time only on The Graveyard. Too sweet, peace. Good night, everybody. Glad to be back.